Chapter 91. Issue 91. The Amazing Web Part 5. The Spider Crew was dealing with the emergence of a god-like being. Spot was almost completely black in color. The energy from the realm of darkness rolled off his body like he had some sort of Dragon Ball Z aura, and he seemed to be far crazier than the villain Peter was familiar with. Where is he? Oh, little spider. Come out wherever you are. Where is he? Miguel groaned as he signaled for his team to turn on the machines. Give him a break. Kid had a bad teacher, Benji joked as he got ready to go on the assault. So many bugs to squash. Spot raised his hand and tried to teleport. However, the machines kept him from moving through his own portals. What? What did you do? Didn't expect that, did ya? Benji smirked. Spot threw a portal at a Spider-Man who dodged. The portal enlarged and suddenly engulfed a large piece of debris before spitting out decaying particles. I thought you stopped his powers from working? The spider hero that dodged complained. No, I stopped him from jumping universes. 8210, you didn't listen to the debrief as usual, Miguel shouted as he shot out his hard light webbing. Spot opened a portal and caused it to shoot back at him. 2099 Spider-Man leapt out of the way before Benji swung over and tried to vault kick his opponent. Spot got ready to redirect, but when he tried to open the portal, his attempt failed. Peter raised his hand and used the reality topaz to seal the portal shut and the kick landed. Spot flew back and crashed into a pile of metal and rock before he designated it and looked at 881211 Spider-Man like he wanted to kill him. Ah crap. He ruined my boots, Benji complained as the material crumbled into dust. Better not touch him, guys. I'll do more than that. He tried to open another portal, but once again, he failed. You didn't say the magic word. Peter swayed his finger side to side. How did you? Spot was interrupted by a sling of magic that wrapped around his legs and drug him to the ground. I caught me a spotted cow, yeehaw. MJ chuckled as she laid on more webbing. Enough. Spot shouted in anger. A pitch-black sphere shot out from his body and exploded into dozens of portals that shot towards everyone. Peter did his best to seal up all the ones he could catch, but the strays that got away were taken care of by the second squad of spider heroes throwing webbing or objects off the ground into them. Where the hell is that kid? I'm on my way. Miles shouted through the comms. About 2 minutes out. Not fast enough. Pick up the pace. Miles, give me your coordinates, Peter shouted as he continued to use magic alongside MJ to seal off the spatial tiers. Peter jumped up as his spider senses alerted him to the portal opening at his feet. Did you get that? Miguel shouted as he dodged a few of the portals and webbed at the white spots on the villain's chest. Spot moved to the side and absorbed the hard light webbing into his body before reaching out to touch Miguel and do away with him. However, just before he could, Miles popped through a magic portal and kicked the villain away. Have no fear, for I'm here, Miles Davis announced as he landed in a very spider-like pose. You've been reading too much, MHA, Peter rolled his eyes. About time. 881,211 Miles shouted as he webbed a wall into the portal that almost escaped the perimeter they set up. You! Spot's voice was filled with venom. Me! Miles charged his opponent and removed the belt from his waist. Spot shot countless portals, but the spider crew blocked him at every angle. Peter and MJ used magic to seal them shut. The spider army used webbing and debris. Spider-Pig used a frying pan that grew to the size of 20 feet before he slapped away a series of holes like they weren't made of dark force at all. Spider-Noir broke the cement on the ground and threw dozens of pieces of concrete into the air. The Gwens and Morales weaved through them and threw stuff at Spot to throw him off. And Miguel ran up beside Miles Davis before sticking his hand to his back. What are you doing? Spider Sable shouted as he felt his body become weightless. Speeding this up. You ever hear of the fastball special? Miguel answered as spun and redirected all his momentum into throwing Miles as hard as he could. Miles yelled as he was launched like a missile towards Spot. However, the villain was ready for him. Spot launched a few portals towards him and was about to send him head first to a volcano. However, a web line shot out and pulled him out of the way before redirecting him towards Spot. Thanks, Ghost. Miles shouted as another black spot appeared in front of him. Spider-Noir shot a wall of webbing in front of the black portals before grabbing Miles by the chest and tossing him higher into the air. Give em the old one too. You got it. Miles grinned as he looked at the battle from above. You're not getting away. Spot created dozens of more portals that tried to close in on Spider Sable. Peter Porker grinned as he said, Hey, I can make those too. He pulled out a couple portable holes and threw one above Miles and the other in a different direction. When he passed through Cartoon Hole, he ended up still in the air, but behind the villain. Thanks, Porky. Miles aimed a web line at Spot's feet and was ready to pull himself towards his target. Did you think getting behind me would solve your problems? News flash. I don't have eyes. Spot yelled as dozens more holes flew toward the spider hero. However, before they could get close enough, Benji swooped in, narrowly avoiding the portals as he bent and weaved in midair. Need a lift? Benji grabbed Miles' leg before spinning him around a few times. Go get em, kid. When Benji let go, He saw the confidence on his protégé's face while he rocketed off towards Spot. He was about 2 seconds away from tackling the villain onto the ground and wrapping the belt around his waist, but Spot let his hand fall through a portal and touched the kid's face. What? Why aren't you disintegrating? Guess you didn't get the memo. Peter shouted as he closed the portal Spot had opened, chopping off his hand. However, it didn't seem to bother him too much. I'm immune to your freaky power. Miles shot a blob of webbing in his face. It passed through harmlessly, but that wasn't the kid's goal. In less than a second, Peter and MJ used light magic to shackle the villain in place while Miles wrapped the belt around him and turned it on. The machine whirled to life as a bright light enveloped Spot's body. The white and black faded away, leaving only a pale man with a shocked expression. I'm back to normal? A punch from Miguel K.'d him while several other spider heroes webbed the guy into a cocoon with only his head sticking out. Hold him there, we have to get rid his powers completely. Peter started drawing in the dirt, creating a massive spell circle that had him scratching his head a few times. When it was complete, Morales walked up and asked, "What's it for?" "Opening up a one-way door to the Dark Realm." "Why would you want to do that?" Miles followed up. "I'm getting rid of the power the only way I know how right now. I'm giving it back. Hocus pocus, return to sender, darkest embers." Peter's eyes glowed as a strange black door opened up that actually absorbed a good portion of the light around them. It was midday, but anyone within 40 feet of the door saw it as twilight. The lights on the spell circle magnified while doors opened for a second and a stream of energy leaked out from Spot. In mere seconds, all of the dark force energy was sucked into the realm of darkness, and whatever energy that allowed Spot to traverse the multiverse was no longer able to sustain itself. As Peter theorized, the quantum particles released from the collider explosion were only able to attach itself to Spot due to his connection to the dark realm. Without the dark energy powering it, the multiversal particles lost their charge and faded into the background radiation. "We did it, right?" Miles asked while the spell circle moved on to the door. "It's not done yet," Peter announced as the spell lit up again. "Time for the Dark Realm to give back what it stole." Steams of light flew into the door and suddenly forced it open completely. From out of it, all the debris Spot sucked up during their scuffle suddenly started to reappear. "Spider bite," Miguel called out. "Sir? You're not going to believe this." Margot Kess's voice came over the comms. "What is it?" 2099 Spider-Man had a hopeful look on his face. "The damage done to the web? It's reversing?" Spider-Bite replied with an excited expression. "Get me visuals," Miguel shouted. The screen popped up showing the massive hole in India receding. The damage done to the environment was still there, but the people that were broken down in particles started reforming completely intact. Miguel then saw what nearly drove him to tears. The world he thought he destroyed started to repair itself. When he saw the daughter he lost, Benji put his hand on 2099's shoulder and said, "She's back." "Yeah, she is." Miguel took a deep breath to keep his calm. "Good work, Spiders. Let's go home." "What do we do with him?" the 1610 Miles asked. "Hey, Miles." Richie hopped down from a good distance away. "You want to tell me why your mom is calling me up and chewing me out?" "Well, I sort of had to reveal my identity to get here in time," Miles Davis said as his face cringed. "You what? Wait, what I miss?" Benji started laughing as he patted Richie's shoulders. "Oh, we have so much to tell you. Did you know I got a kid now?" Richie beamed as he pulled out his cell. "Me too." Benji did the same. "Come on, Miles. Let's get some hot dogs," Peter Porker snorted as he walked up his old friend. "Your Miles is over there." Morales pointed. "Guys." The 1610 Miles ran over and gave his friends a hug. "Hey, kiddo. Did you get taller?" Spider-Noir patted his shoulder. "Where's Penny?" "Oh, she's working on a job in Universe 1981, Ghost Gwen said as she stood beside her crew. Miguel sighed as they chattered away and turned to Peter before saying, "We'll lock him up in the spider cage. Spot's not going to hurt anyone ever again." "Good to hear. I guess we're finally done here," Peter smiled and looked to MJ. "You ready to go home?" "Yep. Remember, December 5th is the date of our wedding. Make sure to bring a suit." "Will do, ma'am." Benji and Richie gave a salute. "And not the hero kind," Peter added as MJ made a return system that was the size of a handheld box. The portal opened before Peter turned to the group and said, "Don't be spider strangers. Come on over to 881,211 for a visit sometimes. Just make sure to give a call first." "What makes you think I'll let you abuse the web for a mere wedding?" Miguel crossed his arms. "You owe us, Grumpy." "It's just a wedding, sheesh." MJ shook her head. "Besides, we don't need your tech to do this. Universe 881211 is already capable of multiversal travel." "MJ?" Peter smirked at his wife-to-be while creating a boatload of tech with his reality topaz. "On it." MJ smirked back at him and snapped her fingers. Dozens of smaller components gathered together to form small wristwatches that hovered over to their friends. Think of these like your personal wedding invitations. It has communication, texting, Shows our universe's date regardless of any time difference between our universes. And two-way portal to our universe and back. Get one to penny for us. MJ waved as they walked through their portal. Till next time, Spider Heroes, Peter waved and walked through. The other Peters saluted and then found it strange to do something like that. However, it gave them each of them chuckle. I'm confiscating those, Miguel frowned. Like hell you are. Benji laughed as the Spider-Men scrambled. Oh, look at the time. Ghost Spider opened a portal and jumped through. Well, I got a kid to take care of, Benji split. I think I left the stove on, Richie webbed away. I have a thing. Noir hopped out of that dimension. T. That's all, folks. Porky was long gone. You know, I think I hear my ma calling. Miles Davis hopped away. Ugh, fine. Just this once. 2099 hit it well, but when everyone was out of sight, he let out a smirk. Chapter 92. Issue 92. The Amazing Web Part 6. Back in their universe again, Reed looked at them in interest. So, what happened? A lot, and boy, do we have a story to tell you, MJ smiled brightly. A nexus. Reed. We went to the spatial nexus. Peter ran over before they all dissolved into an hour-long conversation of what they went through. MJ showed off some of the tech they bought while Peter gave him MJ's return device to study. This is incredible, absolutely groundbreaking. I'm so jealous of your power, MJ. Reed's smile was brighter than ever. So, have you decided on a vacation spot? MJ asked. Yeah, we found a world that seems relatively safe. As far as we can tell, there are no superpowers, villains, or heroes in this world. The technological level is relatively low as well. They're just now making technology that can go to Mars and back. But most of all, there is no us in that universe, so we can make our identities pretty much the same as here. Just a little forgery here and there and espionage with Sue's help, and we can recreate our I.DS there. What about the rate of time? 15 years over there is just a month over here. So, no one will bat an eye at our vacation time. That's a long time. I want our kids to grow up normal. If their powers are anything like I imagine them to be, then they need to learn how to handle them responsibly, and I can't do that here. With villain attacks, aliens, cosmic forces, magic. I just want to see them grow up safely and spend as much time as I can with them. Richard looked at Peter. A friend taught me that. Glad you listened, Peter smiled. Huh? Sounds neat. If you guys go there and form a Baxter Corporation, you can earn a fortune and help the people of that world. I guess we can, but that's for another time. How are you going to deal with the currency issue? Peter asked. Oh, for that we decided to bring over some gold and rare resources we can actually sell. A solid idea if I ever heard one. The two shared a chuckle. All right, I got a wedding to prepare for, so I'll see you back at the house. Don't stay too long. MJ gave him a kiss, jumped to the window, and webbed off. So, when are you leaving? Peter asked while giving his friend a sad look. We decided on going after your wedding, Reed shook his head. We also have some good news. Sort of. Peter lifted a brow. Yeah? Good news doesn't usually come after that expression. Ha, Owen Reese has agreed to reform if we take him with us and give him a job. He wants a fresh start in a new world. Well, I can agree with that. You should keep him cuffed with the power dampeners. Our latest model can completely seal the X gene. So as long as you keep them on, he can control his powers a bit at a time. I think being part of your family will be a big help in making him a better person. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Reed smiled. Well, Mr. Fantastic, I got a job to do, and I'll start by taking the kids home. Peter eyed the other spiders who were still marveling over the lab equipment. Come on, Spitterette, Spider Sable. Let's go home. Ah, come on. When do I get the chance to study an interdimensional rift accelerator? This baby is amazing. Miles pouted. Did you forget what's on your wrist? Peter tilted his head. But all the fun stuff is at the Nexus. This is here, in our universe. Gwen added. I see a lot of spiders share an interest in science, Reed chuckled. Not all of us, Peter thought of Kane and a few others. Come on, you can bother Reed some other day. Let's give the guy some time with his wife and kid. Peter started dragging them out of the building. Our precious tech. No, they cried as he flung them out the window. Good night, Reed, Peter waved as he webbed off. While heading back, he decided to check up on what his clones had been up to. He dissipated them and absorbed their memories before letting out a smile. His clones had gone to Kuan-Luan and reintroduced the clones of the 4 sacred beasts to the lands. Needless to say, the elders were more than happy to accept a serum that allowed for the merging of the 4 sacred beasts with human genetics. However, Peter didn't tell them that by combining them, they would give them a boost like no other. The elders of Kuan-Luan divided up the serums into 4 clans: the Iron Dragon, Steel Phoenix, Jade Tiger, and Onyx Tortoise clans, each with their own unique method of fighting that mimicked their respective sacred beasts. On top of the formation of the 4 sacred beasts clan, Each of the clansmen had to help raise and take care of the sacred beasts until they were of age. During the next Immortal Tournament, Kuan Luan should fare far better than they did previously. Maybe Danny won't lose this time. As for the clone in charge of terraforming Venus, thousands of different species now lived on the planet. Countless types of vegetation from Earth were grown in both land and sea. Insects beneficial to ecosystems had been added. However, he was selective of the type. For instance, human blood might as well be poison to Venusian mosquitoes, so they were programmed to completely ignore them. The clone added forests with colored leaves ranging from pink cherry blossoms to gold and yellow-leaved trees, massive oak woods, redwoods that were bigger than some hillsides, and countless beneficial shrubberies, fruits, and vegetables to grow in the wild. He couldn't believe he got this all done without the Merlin stones. But then again, the abilities Peter had this day was nothing short of godlike. However, the biggest thing to draw his interest was the massive tree that loomed above all others. The Yggdrasil branches he brought back from Asgard took root and grew to an astonishing 5,000 feet. He could feel magic radiating off it and granting it to everything that lived on the Venusian surface. Well, if Thor asks nicely, I wouldn't mind letting Asgard move here after Ragnarok. Peter decided to add a few floating mountains later for aesthetic looks. Not to mention, it would be a perfect place to host their wedding. Alright, all that's left is to go to Wakanda and make nice with the super-powered advanced kingdom and convince them to take over South Africa. South Africa was one of the few countries that denied their aid with the Ark King reactor project. They wouldn't submit to the stipulation concerning the abolishment of slavery and policing of warlords terrorizing the nation. In Peter's eyes, the King of South Africa was a coward and fool. He's probably been brainwashed by his parents to think that the country would die without its slave trade. They're sitting on rare resources like gold and gems, yet they think that they would die if they booted out France and actually paid the people to go down and mine. Some of the best news came from his crime-fighting clones. He busted a huge child trafficking organization in L.A. and with the Avengers' extensive agents, destroyed several corrupt politicians and criminals infesting the entertainment district. No more deals with the devil in L.A. Peter smirked as he hoped the place would get better soon. MJ needs some competition since her studio has been getting all the good scripts. Then again, it's not hard to compete with a place that's corrupt to the bone, drowning all the new talent, and altering the scripts how they see fit, which often resulted in an inferior product. After MJ snagged the Star Wars contract, her company is estimated to make billions with all the merchandise, ticket sales, and ad revenue for when it hits television channels and streaming services. Due to being the soon-to-be husband of the studio owner, he was able to get a sneak peek at the original script. Mara Jade Walker was the lead of the film, and wow was it ever better than the pile of crap Disney came up with. There was even a big reveal tying into episode 1, 2, and 3 that flipped everything they knew on its head. Peter was actually looking forward to watching this movie, but it was still a year out before anything happened. Thinking back to the how much Disney had fallen, Peter sighed. Maybe I should send out a few dozen clones to clean up the Utes entirely. I could pull a Naruto and do it in secret too. Peter decided to give that idea more thought later and focus on the task at hand. He spent a couple of days making floating islands over the ocean and fewer over the land. Whenever he got tired, he'd go home to recharge and came back with a fresh mind to give his planet more artistic flair. Well, now that it's done, I guess I should head over to Wakanda. Peter opened a portal directly above their hidden city and poked on the barrier a few times. Hello? This is DoorDash. Your order for one superhero is here. Now, are you going to pay with cash or credit? Peter waited a while, but there was no response. You know, I could just walk on through, or maybe I should record this and show everyone in the world where I am right now. I hear I'm quite famous. He waited a couple of minutes until pulling out his phone. I'm not bluffing. All right. A holographic image of Shuri appeared in front of him. Man, you don't take no for an answer. I don't take silence as an answer. However, I know you're curious as to how I know about the real Wakanda. You're going to let me in, right? Shuri gasped. Well, I am curious now. But what makes you think I'm going to let you in just because of that? For one, I can reveal your existence to the world. 2, I'm not here for that but to offer your kingdom aid. The girl became instantly excited as she moved close to his face and spewed out questions. What? Really? Spider-Man is here to help us? With Wah. The teenager vanished from the image and was replaced by the current king, Chaka. Your Majesty, Peter gave a polite bow. I see you know much of us, but we very little of you. Oh, I know that's not true. Surely you heard of the invasion, me hijacking a spaceship, and even building a city in New York. Let's not forget terraforming 2 planets. I thought it was just 1. I did the same for Venus, but I haven't made it public yet, Peter smirked. I see. Well, what is it you are here for? A proposition. I share precious knowledge with you, and you do me a favor. And before you get your panties in a twist, I don't need vibranium and am not remotely interested in the large quantity you're sitting on. Especially when I can make my own. Peter demonstrated as he made an ingot of vibranium appear in his hand. Get to the point, Spider. Why are you here? Perhaps we should talk in person. Dad, let him in. Shuri chirped. I've been dying to get my hands on some alien to research. I mean, come on. It's Spider-Man. The king pushed her daughter out of the image again while Peter chuckled. I see she's a fan. Yes, but I am not as trusting, Chaka replied with a serious expression. You know, this is just a formality. I could portal right to your side, but I chose to wait patiently like a good boy. So do me a favor, just send some escorts over. Heck, you can even arm them if you want. You're not leaving me much choice. Very well, we shall speak in private. You know, I said I could, not that I would. Buet, now that I have your word, I hope you'll humor me for just one meeting. The shield opened to reveal that the armed squad was already there, pointing vibranium weapons at him while giving him a look of pure suspicion. I come in peace. Now take me to your leader. Peter removed his suit as a show of good faith and walked inside wearing his casual attire. One of the guards snickered, before the bald Okoye stamped the butt of her javelin on the ground. Quiet. She walked up close to Peter and looked him over. You're shorter than I imagined. But not less handsome, right? She eyeballed him for a while, then cracked a smile as she held out her hand. Welcome to Wakanda, Spider-Man. I'll be your escort. Dot mai fame precede me? You know of thy name? Funny, Shuri said you were funny. Oyok shook her head. Peter walked through barrier and said, Sorry, but it's not every day you hear your fame has reached a secluded wonderland like this. Just because we're secluded, doesn't mean we are ill-informed. No, I suppose not. The shield closed behind him. A few feet away was a large aircraft capable of transporting him and the others with ease. Neat ship. Does it use vibranium as propulsion? Are you shooting sound waves that get bounced back at the ship to keep it levitating, or is the vibration directly lifting the ship? I believe it's the second. Now please. If you would. Right. Peter walked with the guards surrounding him. Peter watched from a window as the ship lifted into the air and flew over the lands. It's more like the movie. This is incredible. It still has the planes, but the city is massive. I take it you approve? Oyok lifted a brow. Very much. This is definitely top 10 sights I've seen in my life. You know of others? One of the guards gave a cocky smirk. Oh, quiet a few. I've been to Asgard, the realm of the dwarfs, Nidavellir, Mars, Venus, an interdimensional nexus of spiderfolk, you know, your average Tuesday. Sounds like you've been around. Oyok smirked at the stunned expressions her guards had. He has to be making that up. One of the guards mumbled. To prove them wrong, Peter pulled out his cell phone and showed them the pictures he took of some of the places he's been. I don't lie. Well, not to good people anyways. Peter chuckled. Wah. That has to be CG, right? Haven't you heard? Oyok lifted a brow. The Asgardian Thor is one of the Avengers. It makes sense that he's been there. I've never seen such a pure golden color before. Look at those buildings. There are so many people living there. Peter shook his head as put his cell phone back in his suit and waited for the ride to come to a stop. While he looked out the window, Peter got his first multiversal text. 1610 mmd. Is this thing working? Or am I the only one trying? Peter noticed that there was a string of hellos miles left. 1610 PRP. Well, it works on our end. I've been busy dealing with your mom, so I haven't had time to check this thing out. Think it's broken? 616C, PBP. Nope, it works in my universe too. Say hi Annie. 616C, PBP. Sksejkif. 616C, PBP. Close enough. 65 GMS. Hey guys. What's up? Inhuejin 0 MMD, Gwen. It's good to hear from you. 1610 PRP. It's only been a couple of days. Chapter 91. Issue 91. The Amazing Web Part 5. The Spider Crew was dealing with the emergence of a god-like being. Spot was almost completely black in color. The energy from the realm of darkness rolled off his body like he had some sort of Dragon Ball Z aura, and he seemed to be far crazier than the villain Peter was familiar with. Where is he? Oh, little spider. Come out wherever you are. Where is he? Miguel groaned as he signaled for his team to turn on the machines. Give him a break. Kid had a bad teacher, Benji joked as he got ready to go on the assault. So many bugs to squash. Spot raised his hand and tried to teleport. However, the machines kept him from moving through his own portals. What? What did you do? Didn't expect that, did ya? Benji smirked. Spot threw a portal at a Spider-Man who dodged. The portal enlarged and suddenly engulfed a large piece of debris before spitting out decaying particles. I thought you stopped his powers from working? The spider hero that dodged complained. No, I stopped him from jumping universes. 8210, you didn't listen to the debrief as usual, Miguel shouted as he shot out his hard light webbing. Spot opened a portal and caused it to shoot back at him. 2099 Spider-Man leapt out of the way before Benji swung over and tried to vault kick his opponent. Spot got ready to redirect, but when he tried to open the portal, his attempt failed. Peter raised his hand and used the reality topaz to seal the portal shut and the kick landed. Spot flew back and crashed into a pile of metal and rock before he designated it and looked at 881211 Spider-Man like he wanted to kill him. Ah crap. He ruined my boots, Benji complained as the material crumbled into dust. Better not touch him, guys. I'll do more than that. He tried to open another portal, but once again, he failed. You didn't say the magic word. Peter swayed his finger side to side. How did you? Spot was interrupted by a sling of magic that wrapped around his legs and drug him to the ground. I caught me a spotted cow, yeehaw. MJ chuckled as she laid on more webbing. Enough! Spot shouted in anger. A pitch-black sphere shot out from his body and exploded into dozens of portals that shot towards everyone. Peter did his best to seal up all the ones he could catch, but the strays that got away were taken care of by the second squad of spider heroes throwing webbing or objects off the ground into them. Where the hell is that kid? I'm on my way. Miles shouted through the comms. About 2 minutes out. Not fast enough. Pick up the pace. Miles, give me your coordinates, Peter shouted as he continued to use magic alongside MJ to seal off the spatial tiers. Peter jumped up as his spider senses alerted him to the portal opening at his feet. Did you get that? Miguel shouted as he dodged a few of the portals and webbed at the white spots on the villain's chest. Spot moved to the side and absorbed the hard light webbing into his body before reaching out to touch Miguel and do away with him. However, just before he could, Miles popped through a magic portal and kicked the villain away. Have no fear, for I'm here, Miles Davis announced as he landed in a very spider-like pose. You've been reading too much, MHA, Peter rolled his eyes. About time, 881,211 Miles shouted as he webbed a wall into the portal that almost escaped the perimeter they set up. You! Spot's voice was filled with venom. Me! Miles charged his opponent and removed the belt from his waist. Spot shot countless portals, but the spider crew blocked him at every angel. Peter and MJ used magic to seal them shut. The spider army used webbing and debris. Spider-Pig used a frying pan that grew to the size of 20 feet before he slapped away a series of holes like they weren't made of dark force at all. Spider-Noir broke the cement on the ground and threw dozens of pieces of concrete into the air. The Gwens and Morales weaved through them and threw stuff at Spot to throw him off. And Miguel ran up beside Miles Davis before sticking his hand to his back. What are you doing? Spider-Sable shouted as he felt his body become weightless. Speeding this up. You ever hear of the fastball special? Miguel answered as spun and redirected all his momentum into throwing Miles as hard as he could. Miles yelled as he was launched like a missile towards Spot. However, the villain was ready for him. Spot launched a few portals towards him and was about to send him head first to a volcano. However, a web line shot out and pulled him out of the way before redirecting him towards Spot. Thanks, Ghost. Miles shouted as another black spot appeared in front of him. Spider-Noir shot a wall of webbing in front of the black portals before grabbing Miles by the chest and tossing him higher into the air. Give em the old one too. You got it. Miles grinned as he looked at the battle from above. You're not getting away. Spot created dozens of more portals that tried to close in on Spider-Sable. Peter Porker grinned as he said, Hey, I can make those too. He pulled out a couple portable holes and threw one above Miles and the other in a different direction. When he passed through Cartoon Hole, he ended up still in the air, but behind the villain. Thanks, Porky. Miles aimed a web line at Spot's feet and was ready to pull himself towards his target. Did you think getting behind me would solve your problems? News flash. I don't have eyes. Spot yelled as dozens more holes flew toward the spider hero. However, before they could get close enough, Benji swooped in, narrowly avoiding the portals as he bent and weaved in midair. Need a lift? Benji grabbed Miles' leg before spinning him around a few times. Go get em, kid. When Benji let go, he saw the confidence on his protégé's face while he rocketed off toward Spot. He was about 2 seconds away from tackling the villain onto the ground and wrapping the belt around his waist, but Spot let his hand fall through a portal and touched the kid's face. What? Why aren't you disintegrating? Guess you didn't get the memo. Peter shouted as he closed the portal Spot had opened, chopping off his hand. However, it didn't seem to bother him too much. I'm immune to your freaky power. Miles shot a blob of webbing in his face. It passed through harmlessly, but that wasn't the kid's goal. In less than a second, Peter and MJ used light magic to shackle the villain in place while Miles wrapped the belt around him and turned it on. The machine whirled to life as a bright light enveloped Spot's body. The white and black faded away, leaving only a pale man with a shocked expression. I'm back to normal? A punch from Miguel K.'d him while several other spider heroes webbed the guy into a cocoon with only his head sticking out. Hold him there, we have to get rid his powers completely. Peter started drawing in the dirt, creating a massive spell circle that had him scratching his head a few times. When it was complete, Morales walked up and asked, What's it for? Opening up a one-way door to the Dark Realm. Why would you want to do that? Miles followed up. I'm getting rid of the power the only way I know how right now. I'm giving it back. Hocus pocus, return to sender, darkest embers. Peter's eyes glowed as a strange black door opened up that actually absorbed a good portion of the light around them. It was midday, but anyone within 40 feet of the door saw it as twilight. The lights on the spell circle magnified while doors opened for a second and a stream of energy leaked out from Spot. In mere seconds, all of the dark force energy was sucked into the realm of darkness, and whatever energy that allowed Spot to traverse the multiverse was no longer able to sustain itself. As Peter theorized, the quantum particles released from the collider explosion were only able to attach itself to Spot due to his connection to the dark realm. Without the dark energy powering it, the multiversal particles lost their charge and faded into the background radiation. We did it. Right? Miles asked while the spell circle moved on to the door. It's not done yet, Peter announced as the spell lit up again. Time for the dark realm to give back what it stole. Steams of light flew into the door and suddenly forced it open completely. From out of it, all the debris Spot sucked up during their scuffle suddenly started to reappear. Spider bite. Miguel called out. Sir? You're not going to believe this. Margot Kess's voice came over the comms. What is it? 2099 Spider-Man had a hopeful look on his face. The damage done to the web? It's reversing? Spiderbite replied with an excited expression. Get me visuals, Miguel shouted. The holographic table reappeared with the spiderfolk all chatting to each other. 64. Ghost Spider. Noir, you have to stop. You're colorblind. Or rather, you whole universe is. 90214. Shady_Spider-Man. Mark my words, Ghost. I will figure out this color thing out. 616C. Amazing_Spider-Man. Yeah, let the colorblind man dream. To be honest, watching another version of myself that can't tell red from blue is hilarious. 1610. Sensational_Spider-Man. Guys? 8311. The _fantastic_Spider-Ham. Hey, he could always use the Infinity Stone to oink it into existence. Peter looked at the shocked expressions and doubt on the Wakandian royal members. Ahem. Peter coughed into his hand. 1610. Spectacular_Spider-Sable. Wait, other me what's an Infinity Stone? 1610. Sensational_Spider-Man. Yo guys. 881211. Supreme_Spider-Sable. I don't know either. 881211. Spiderette. Is it like Teach Smerlin Stones? 1610. Sensational_Spider-Man. Guys. 616C. Amazing_Spider-Man. Sort of, but those gemstones the strongest has only wield a fraction of the full might of the Infinity Stones. You get those bad boys and you're basically a god above gods. Peter sighed. One moment. The space, reality, and mind gemstones lit up as Peter channeled them into his magic. Several portals opened up to show various forms of spider heroes all lounging around while speaking into their wrist devices. Sup? Peter, Peter called out, getting their attention. Oh she. Benji opened his mouth in surprise. Watch it. Adult Mary Jane Parker popped her head into the view of the portal. Whose baby is in your arms right now? Ours. Benji gave that look all guys give when they're busted. Whose baby do we not want cursing at the daycare or with the babysitter? Ours. Benji sighed and pointed at the portal. But. No buts. And other Peter, it's nice to finally meet you. Hi Mary. MJ waved her hands. After seeing the suit on her other self, Benji's MJ gasped and said, Holy she. See. Not so easy, is it? Benji jumped up as he covered her mouth. So, what you need, buddy? I was trying to tell you guys. Richie slapped his forehead. What's the skinny? New villain drop? That is how you kids say it, right? I heard Miles say that. Noir tilted his head into the room. Holy crap. Chala. Benji webbed over with Mayday in her chest harness. Pete. No web slinging with the baby. Benji wrapped his arm around Chala and said, How you doing, bud? Been a while since I've been in the castle. This isn't a castle. Chala still couldn't believe his eyes. Sure it isn't, Benji chuckled. Hey Shuri. You still got that awesome lab downstairs? This is the coolest thing ever, Shuri mumbled. Sorry about him, he's like me if I had ADD, Richie gave a courteous head nod. Oh, so we're finally visiting, huh? Porky walked over and held out his hand. I'm Peter Porker. Nice to meet ya. You know, you're a real panther in my world. Is that a talking cartoon pig? The Queen asked. Oh, this just keeps getting better, Shuri said while smiling ear to ear. This a dandy place you have here. Noir looked around. Never met royalty before. Peter, Porky, this is the Wakanda of my universe. I'd love to keep you around, but I'm just trying to prove what I am about to show them isn't fake. So, you're using us? That's messed up, man, Ghost Gwen joked. And here I thought he cared. Benji joined in. Is that all we are to you? Richie added while fake crying. I thought we had something special. Porky pulled out a handkerchief and blew into it. Guys, give the kid a break. Noir pinched the bridge of his nose. Several of the MJs looked at each other from the portal and sighed. My apologies for our husbands. Richie's wife shook her head while holding her Annie. Just so you know, MJ and I aren't married in my universe, Noir spoke up. But we are dating. You could put a ring on me if you're brave enough, Tiger. Black and White MJ announced as she stepped through the portal. This dame is going to be the death of me. Noir pulled his collar with a nervous look on his face. Noir me's pretty hot, Benji's wife said as she joined the room. What did you do for a living? I'm a singer at a popular club. Darling. What about you? Actress, and a part-time superhero now, Richie's wife smiled. Model. Pete gave me his power set for protection, but I think I'll leave the crime fighting to him, Benji's MJ added. It's actually pretty fun. You should give a try, Richie's wife replied. My MJ's a clothing designer, and a water buffalo, a beautiful and kind water buffalo, Porky smiled softly. I'm all of those things rolled into one, and I'm a well-known scientific engineer, Peter's MJ bragged, except for the water buffalo thing, and I haven't sung since my junior high school's play. This has to be some kind of trick, right? Ramonda muttered. Shuri pulled out a gizmo and scanned the visitors. Nah, they're all real. Genetic sequence included. Except for this one, he has pig DNA. Well, I not just a pig, Porker nodded his head. Neat gizmo. It can scan the genetic structures with just light alone? Looks like you got some competition, MJ, Peter chuckled. I call them goobers, Benji shrugged his shoulders. Gadgets, Richie admitted. Doodads, Noir nodded his head. Wow, the nickname gets one generation older every time, Shuri snorted. Oh yeah? What do you call them? Benji looked over. Tech, Shuri said with an expression as if that were the most obvious thing in the world. Damn, that is good, the other spiders said at the same time. Richie's MJ started laughing. It was so infectious that it spread to the others in the room. Wow, this has to be the third strangest thing that has ever happened to me. Benji's MJ wiped away a tear. Third? Darling, what is wrong with your world? Noir MJ asked. A lot, Ghost Gwen sighed. Well, meeting other people from different universes has happened a few times in our timeline, Richie's MJ said as she shook her head. So it's not too surprising now. Why do you think I said third? Benji's MJ smirked. So, Teach, where are you? I know Wakanda, but this don't look like it, Morales said as he looked out the window. Oh, don't tell anybody about this place. Think of it like an early Avengers secret. Wait, he gets to be an Avenger already? Davis pointed at his other self. You get there someday, kid, Richie patted his shoulder. You know, my version of Tony dropped by and sent me an invite recently, Ghost Gwen bragged before giving Shuri a hug. It's good to see you again, Panther Jr. Ah, come on. Davis slapped his forehead. No worry, you know me in your universe? Yeah, you're the new Black Panther in my universe, Ghost Gwen replied. Chala gave a surprised expression. He never imagined his sister would take the mantle someday, especially when she's always saying that this work was for jocks. Spiderette walked over and told Davis, we're still in class, but we'll get our hero's license in a year and our Miles here will get it in 2. So we get to choose whether to join S.H.I.E.L.D., SWORD, or the Avengers. Actually, it's the other way around, Peter said. They put in the recommendations based off your results. It's so you go to a suitable faction. But we are going to the Avengers, right? Morales looked worried. He had his sights set on joining the Avengers. I already put in the recommendation. Just have to wait until you graduate. Sweet, Morales nodded his head. Wait, what sword? Davis asked. Oh, that's our Space Defense Division. They're supposed to act like diplomats and strike force for any alien issues, Morales explained. More of the vicious attack group in my world, and not very legal, Benji commented. Same, Richie sighed. You guys made it to space? Noir looked completely surprised. Ahem. I'm sorry, but can you hurry this along? I am a king and have duties to attend to. All right, I'll get straight to the point. I want you to take over South Africa. The room became rather tense rather quickly. Whoa, dude. Did you become a villain in the last few minutes? Benji looked shocked to the core. Yeah, are we going to have a standoff here? Porky lifted a brow. You know that's a big move, kid, Noir crossed his arms. You need to explain. Now, hear me out. Africa needs a good leader, and Chaka fits that bill. That's hubris speaking. My father once thought of doing the same, but I thought it was more important to focus on ourselves. Because of that decision we have flour. Let me stop you right there. Peter held his hand up and snapped his finger. Various screens floated in front of everyone. Their slaves being abused, warlords attacking villages and charity organizations, children being sold, villagers dying from starvation, entire tribes being raided and sold on the black market, and so much pain coming from the citizens of this massive continent. I will give up much for such a power source, but I will not give up our slaves. The image was a video recording of the current king's discussion over the Arc King reactor. The leader of the country is scum. There are thousands of innocent people dying on your doorstep, and I can't do anything without risking another world war. King, Queen, the current state of this world is like a powder keg standing next to a match. Metahumans with amazing powers are popping up every day, technology is rapidly improving at a level due to the alien invasion, and every threat Earth will face in the future are beings that are far more advanced than you understand. How long before this environment breeds the next supervillain that wants to destroy the planet? How long do they have to suffer because of your seclusion? Spider-Man sighed as he saw the looks of shame on their face. I'm not here to admonish you. I want to give you everything you need to take over South Africa on your terms. Put an end to this madness once and for all. I'm begging you, not for me, but for those innocents that could live better lives. You're asking us to go to war, the king spoke. I'll ensure that no one else in the world interferes. Many people will die, the queen added. That tends to happen in war. But with our tech, advantages, and knowledge, it doesn't have to be that way. I'm willing to give you mine and the full support of the Avengers during this operation. We'll keep those so-called government officials and warmongers from ever opening their mouths. But you won't fight in the war yourself. I can't. If I get involved, publicly, then other nations that are profiting from that very same evil will use that to kick off another world war. However, this is your land, your home. If what you're doing is an inherently good thing, then it's the Avengers' job to protect such a movement from harm. If someone says let's go defend the slave-loving king of another country, no one's get on board with that idea, and if they do, we'll be there to stop them. Wow, babe, you really thought this out. Was this always your plan when you joined the Avengers? MJ showed a shocked expression. I need competent people in charge, people that can handle the responsibility of this crazy planet we live on. If it stops villains from being born, then I'll do everything in my power to make it happen. I can't tell how many worlds have spawned the worst villains due to a poor social environment. World enders, galaxy eaters, monsters that can kill entire universes, all born due to mishap and mistreatment. If this war can save millions of lives, no, even if could only save one, then isn't it worth it? The images on the floating screen changed, showing some of the worst and most pitiful villains born throughout the Marvelverse. An image showed the 616C universe of events. It started with the death of Chaka at the hands of the villain Claw. While the adoptive son of the royal family, the White Wolf, witnessed it happen firsthand. The queen was particularly heartbroken over this. Hunter was her child in this life, and in the one she was viewing. It didn't matter if he wasn't their blood. To see her own husband die and her son witness the murder, it was enough to bring any mother to tears. Even after the death of his adoptive father, Chala refused to do something about the crime-infested streets of South Africa. So, thinking that Chala was too weak to lead, he challenged him to a fight for the throne and lost. However, the pain didn't vanish. He went out looking for the man that killed his father. It doesn't just hurt the innocents but your family too. Peter sped this image up a bit. Damn, that was a dark day. He pulled through though and they settled their differences, Benji commented. The image now showed Hunter and Kala meeting later and discussing that he'd like to see South Africa become as advanced as Wakanda someday, mere weeks before he was captured and enslaved by the very man that killed his father. Yet your sit and wait style led to this exact event. Kala was heartbroken to learn his brother thought he was a weakling, shocked that he lost his father due to their secluded nature, and devastated to learn he could have done something about it. The rest of the family wasn't faring too well either. Dozens of images from various multiverses showed them how much pain was caused due to their inaction. These are all real universes where events may slightly be different or exactly the same. But it doesn't have to be our future. I suppose you have seen as such, Chaka lifted a brow. Yeah, this world is relatively close to ours, where only a single difference was made a long time ago. Peter pulled the image to another universe where Chaka had heeded his father's advice. In one fell swoop, they managed to set on their conquest of taking over all of South Africa. After Chaka became king of Wakanda, he started the war by freeing slaves, protecting villages by imparting his wisdom and teaching across the land, and eventually caught the South Africans King Ire. The people started to call him the true king of Africa. And so, Africa was embroiled in intense power struggle. Since he was around 40 in 1966, he lived through WW2, and the tension he put on the South African king made him join the war as a Nazi ally. In exchange for helping them with South Africa's conquest by ridding the slave trade and aid with hunting down warlords, around the time of Captain America's birth, Chaka joined the war as American allies alongside Britain, Russia, Canada, and France. His actions resulted in him saving millions and ending the war before the completion of the atom bomb. The Earth never became polluted due to them sharing just knowledge of their technological advances alone. There were a few hiccups, theft and assassination attempts, but they prevailed time and time again, leading the future to a brighter life. I liked this world. A lot of death was avoided. That Earth was even able to fend off the first alien invasion better than we did. By the way, you look good for a dude pushing 80, Peter looked at the king. The serum our family takes provides certain benefits. Chaka almost sounded a little choked up. It's not too late. In fact, I think we can win this war without shedding a single drop of blood. Well, other than the corrupt royal family. The people are gonna want his head, especially the roughly 500,000 of those currently enslaved. Though, keep in mind, that about the lowest estimation that's been reported. By my estimations, it's actually about 2.3 times higher. And what's in for you? The queen asked, still very upset about the future in store for their adoptive son. This little blue ball I call home gets a little bit brighter, Peter smiled. If only things were so simple. Perhaps we should discuss this in another location. Man, this is heavy, Richie shook his head. I don't. It's the right move to make though, Benji added. Peter sighed. You think I haven't already tried diplomacy? This won't end until someone does something about it, and if it has to be me that pushes things forward, then so be it. Africa is a big place. You need some pretty advanced tech and lots of people to actually do what you're planning, Noir spoke up. You forget, friend, I can get the locations of every dirty villainous scum out here, their weapons, their armies, and even what the color of their underwear is. That does sound useful. The other stuff, not the underwear. Richie added. Please, spider people, follow me to the conference room. Chaka held his hand out to direct them. You got snacks in this place. We were supposed to go out for dinner tonight, Benji spoke up. Food sounds great. Who wants hot dogs? Porky called out. I hope you don't mind our wives and kids coming along. Richie rubbed the back of his head nervously. Your wives and children are not a problem, Chaka sighed. I'll feed them, Peter chuckled as he saw the look of frustration on the king's face. Chapter 94, Issue 94, The Amazing Web Part 8. Once they reconvened inside the main conference room with food he gathered from Venus, the group sat down and enjoyed a quick meal. The queen complimented the two MJs on their baby's adorableness. The two Annies played with each other like siblings, and everyone complimented the chi-filled food. So what I wanted to start with is the location of every warlord, base, and criminal in South Africa. Peter summoned a stack of papers that filled up a portion of the area. This should be all the evidence you'll need on criminals, corrupt politicians and government officials, villages with powerful metahumans that need teaching and safety, and a design for the African branch of Avengers. You've been thinking about this for a while now, haven't you? Shuri started looking through everything. Besides South Africa, North Korea, Eritrea, Mauritania, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Tajikistan, United Arab Emirates, China, Afghanistan, and Kuwait, so many different third world or underdeveloped countries to take care of and uplift. I'm going to busy for these next few months. You seriously think you can solve the world's biggest issues by yourself? Ghost said as she chowed down on a dragon cow steak. Who said I was by myself? I got you lugs help out, Peter grinned. And not to mention. 12 of his clones popped out of his body as he said, this is my current limit, but I could cut their power in half and triple this output. Aren't people going to get suspicious that there are so many Spider-Men and women helping out? Oh ye of little faith, Peter snapped his fingers, and they all took on the appearance of Black Panther's suit. Oh, I see what you're getting at, Benji said as he fed Mayday some of the soft baby food. Hold on, we haven't agreed just yet, the king spoke up. I can't just believe you're doing this for the greater good of the planet. Well, I am. Surely there must be something you're after. Ugh, again with the vibranium stuff. Look. Peter opened a portal to Venus. I have a whole planet to myself. I've got no interest in ruling over things. I don't give two squats about your resources. And I'm most certainly not doing this for Wakanda's technology. Now ain't that a flex? Shuri's eyes popped. I know, right? Morales' jaw was practically on the floor. You put in a lot of work since I last saw it, MJ commented as she noticed the various animals. I wanted the place to look nice for when we get married, Peter blushed a little. I get flowers and she gets a whole planet? 616C, MJ said jokingly. Oh, you cannot be serious. How did you terraform all of Venus? Benji shouted. Learn, alchemy and magic, and it's not that hard, Peter smirked. Wait, alchemy is real? Is that how you produced that vibranium earlier? Shuri asked with stars in her eyes. What about the Americans and Avengers? Chaka asked. The Avengers have access to the Null Realm and many different resources that you don't even know of. Resources are the least of America's worries now, MJ informed. As for technology, I think my Skrull ship I confiscated, and information from various spacefaring aliens makes us top tier in the Milky Way, not just Earth. Wakandian technology included. Hey! Sorry Shuri, it's the truth, Peter smiled. So? Peter closed the portal. Any other doubts you want to clear up? If we aren't killing our opponents, what are we doing with them? Chala asked. Well, I've built a couple planet for prisoners at the far end of our star's gravitational pull. It has everything a person needs to live, and is cordoned off into severity of crime. There's the life without parole planet, rehabilitation planet, and exiled planet for the worst of the worst. They're about as big as our moons. Already have a bunch of prisoners on it too. Peter opened a portal to the out edges of the Sol system and revealed the large planetary bodies rotating parallel from each other in a grouping of 3, with each planet surrounded by a single set of crossing orbital rings. The light emitted by the ring kept the planets in sunlight while they rotated, and the poles running through the cores kept it all floating next to each other without them interacting. Is that where you sent Hydra? MJ asked. The guilty ones, yes. The rehabilitation planet is more like Earth and still has a connection to our planet's entertainment, music, movies, etc. Those that guilty of crimes but are victims of circumstances will be shown some leniency. They'll even be given power to govern themselves. Okay, he deserves the strongest title, Benji laughed. So, prison planets. What are the other two like? MJ asked. Oh, the life sentence without parole plant is that one. It belongs to people like crime lords, drug kingpins, slavers, corrupt politicians with war crimes, and those that violate human life willingly. It's a bit more restrictive, mandatory curfews, no entertainment, and only the bare bones necessary for living. They can only be moved to the rehabilitation planet if they actually change for the better. As for the exile planet, there isn't a single thing for them other than a wild landscape, of course. Only psychotic murders and the worst of mankind go there. That's a little harsh, Ghost Spider spoke up. I'm not a cruel person. There's plenty of wildlife and plant life they can survive on. Weather isn't an issue either since the days will always be around 74 degrees. What are the odds of them escaping? Chaka asked. 0.0001%. They have to get past my tech, AI, and magic. Not something easy to do. Rockets, weapons, and spaceships are also dismantled by spells automatically. It is quite impossible to escape from here. I even turned the rings into a device that emits a light that suppresses various powers like the X gene. Even if they mutate in the future, they won't be able to harness whatever powers they manifest, and if they're enhanced by science or a serum, whatever material was empowering them is cleansed from their bodies long before they become prisoners. I see, the king gave a pensive stare. And what of any children? Well, only the rehabilitation planet is co-ed. It was my hope that it would become like a second Australia. Like a space Australia? Richie's MJ asked. Yes, like a space Australia. I figured since it worked on Earth, it might work in space too. I won't hold the children responsible for their parents' sins, so if they chose to let them return to Earth or deemed unworthy to raise a child, I'll personally see to any adoption issues. However, should the new generation choose to stay, they'd basically become wardens for the other two planets. The rehabilitation planet is a pretty posh and well-stocked planet. With over 2,800 squared miles of surface area and millions of years of resources, food, an ocean of subterranean water and lakes, no unnatural weather phenomena, it's basically its own paradise. I see, the Queen nodded her head. Perhaps countless generations after, they can rejoin humanity. I'll make a protocol just for that, Peter replied. Isn't this kind of hinky? I mean, a personal prison, Noir asked. First of all, it a tax-free prison, automated uncountable guards in the form of bots, and only the worst of the worst get sent there. Peter looked around the room before asking, how many times have your villains escaped prison? More than I can count, Benji sighed. Yeah, I'm a bit tired of kicking my rouge galleries, but's every Tuesday, Richie followed up. Tell me about it. Why is it so hard to keep them in their pins? And half the time they still manage operate from the inside. Porky slammed his head on the table. I deal mine the old-fashioned way. Noir patted the gun at his hip. Just once, I want to go a year without hearing Electro's escaped. The vulture is at it again, Ghost Gwen sighed. It would certainly make our lives easier, several MJs nodded their heads. And it's still better than killing them, Benji admitted. Not to mention, our universe is about to become a multi-planetary species. You'd be surprised how common it is for planets to build their prisons in space, and not even half of them are as nice as mine, Peter added. Right, I keep forgetting that part. It's a little weird to hear humanity is about to inhabit multiple planets, Richie chuckled. I haven't even gotten started yet, I've done the calculations, and if I synchronize their orbits, I can fit dozens of planets right beside our own, create a web of interconnected rings that keep our planets spinning and healthy, and eventually encapsulate our star. Once we're at that stage, we can feed our own star and lift heavier metals out of it, extend its lifespan for a very, very long time. Wow, you're planning far into the future, Shuri mumbled. Have to, I'm going to live a very long time too, Peter smirked. Ayo. What's that mean? Miles Morales lifted a brow. Well, I may have a perfected legendary elixir that can only be made from a philosopher's stone. You have a philosopher's stone? Benji and Richie asked at the same time. Yeah, it makes a pretty good power source for my gemstones too now. So, no more time limit. Also, I can make them. Peter held out his hand and created a couple before grabbing them. 2 cups appeared underneath his grasp as he squeezed out the energy from the stone into a red viscous liquid. The one on my back was forged with the Infinity Stones, so it makes a much more powerful version. It can even restore the youths of godlike beings. Peter gave the cups to Richie, Benji, Noir, and their MJs. Drink up, my treat. It tastes a bit like cherry wine. Is this for real? Benji asked as he sniffed it a few times. Yeah, it doesn't affect youths either, since it only stops the aging when it becomes detrimental to their bodies. I don't know if we should. Richie didn't know about becoming someone with an eternal lifespan. These are from a regular philosopher's stone. At most it'll extend your lifespan to around 1,000 years. More than long enough for you to learn to make philosopher's stones of your own. You see, while I can handle some if not most villains, there are certain immortal ones that are always causing trouble. You guys heard of Kong the Conqueror? Ugh, I wish I hadn't, Benji groaned. Yeah, he's going to be an issue, Peter sighed. Who is Kong? Chala asked. A multiversal immortal with serious self-hate issues. He just loves wiping out entire timelines just to kill himself. Anyways, if one shows up in your universe, we can team up to take him down. Right. Well, I wouldn't mind being a few years younger. Benji looked rather tempted. I really think you should. After all, you can abuse your world's Kamartaj's time room to learn magic, alchemy, get ahead of certain projects, make time for your family, and just all-around better life. Should we? He said we could make our own, so we don't have to worry about watching our loved ones dying, Benji's MJ said as she picked up the cup. The others joined in as Peter made more cups. So what, an immortal spider hero club? Ghost Gwen commented. These things don't make you immortal. They do enhance your regeneration factor and extend your lifespan, but your head leaves your shoulders. You say bye-bye life. Sounds good to me, down the hatch. Noir was the first to drink. It does taste like cherries. Feel any different? Noir MJ questioned. A bit stronger, but nothing out of the ordinary. Noir pulled off his mask. Oh, your crow's feet are gone. Well, I'll be damned, I feel 28 again, Noir smirked. Goodbye, bad back. Benji cheered as he gulped down the drink. The other spiders followed. Those that were underage didn't really feel any different, other than slightly more energetic, but those over the age of 30 certainly felt and saw the difference. Yeah, I feel really good, Benji and Richie said at the same time. Richie licked his lips. Well, I stayed in pretty good shape. So, I don't feel that different. His MJ poked his elbow. Liar. By now, most of the Wakandian royalty had managed to pick their jaws off the floor. It was clear just how much aligning with Peter would provide their kingdom. But as it turned out, Peter wasn't done with his sales pitch just yet. Here are 50 injection serums that contain the very same concoction that made Captain America that has been improved by yours truly. I've made it so it's compatible with the flower you use to make the Black Panther. I want you to use this to form the foundation of the African branch of the Avengers. Of course, this comes with stipulations. Chaka, you must become the final council member of the main Avengers. I need some time to discuss this with my family. The king looked to the other spiders. If you could give me a few minutes, I would appreciate it. No problem. Peter got up and nudged his head to the others. 50? You managed to recreate the super soldier serum? Benji questioned as they all started walking out of the room. Please, that was made in the 1940s. I've improved it several times over. If the Wakandian family takes it on top of their current augmentation, the effects will be even greater. Dude, share. Richie popped his head up next to Peter's. Here. Decode, make your own, do something good with it. Peter tossed them a vial. They caught it and gave him a surprised look. We were joking. They both looked at their vials in shock. Well, it's yours now. In fact, I'll give out 2 to each of you. 1 for you to study and 1 for all of you to use. It's the least I can do since you're all helping me with this whole Shadow War issue. A war without bloodshed, it's never been done before. At least, not on the scale you're planning, Noir spoke up. Then let's be the first, Peter replied as they all went downstairs and waited at the entrance of the building. While they chatted and killed time by joking with each other, the royal family was having a serious conversation. So, we're taking the deal, right? Shuri eyeballed the case of super soldier serum in front of her. I can't figure him out. I am not sure if we can trust him, Chaka replied. Father, for once, I agree with Shuri. After seeing the state of our land, I cannot turn a blind eye to it any longer, Chala sighed as he recalled the countless images of his African brothers and sisters suffering. It was never a pretty picture, but even I... No, perhaps I didn't want to know what went on in my old kingdom. The queen showed a remorseful expression. Did I make a mistake not taking my father's advice? Chaka sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Shuri, is he really such a trustworthy hero? I'm telling you, this guy has done more good for the world than anyone before him. He's helped clean up the planet's pollution with Tony Stark, eased human and mutant, metahuman relationships and gave them Mars, put countless bad guys behind bars, and took down world-conquering aliens and Nazis. I think he's pretty trustworthy. In fact, Shuri grabbed the serum and injected herself with a vial. Shuri! They all gave a shocked and worried expression. However, her body glowed brightly for a moment and suddenly became slightly bulkier and even grew half a foot. Ooh! Feels like an ocean of electrical currents are coursing through my veins. This stuff is legit. She then accidentally put too much pressure on the table and caused it to snap. The box of S.S serums was flung into the air, but luckily, Chaka and Chala were quick enough to grab it before it hit the floor. Oops, sorry. Phew! Ramonda let out a sigh of relief while the men picked up the case slowly and put it back on the table. You know these things are made of some seriously tough tempered glass. Shuri dropped the empty vial on the ground and showed them how high it could bounce. We didn't know that. The father and son looked rather embarrassed. So, what do we do with this? Chala asked. Chaka looked at them with intense scrutiny until his eyes shifted upward. The grief-stricken faces of those enslaved, the pain the criminals inflicted upon his people, and hopeless stares from those being exploited, those graping his land and citizens, they were all seared into his mind. Dear Bast, I pray that this is the right decision. He picked up the serum and injected himself. Just like Shuri, his body glowed. Only, the transformation was more apparent. His body took on a younger form, his muscles returned and were slightly bulkier than they were in his prime, and he was almost 6 inches taller. Oh my! He did say that it was compatible with our Panther formula, but wow, Dad. You look so. I haven't felt this good in years, no, I've never felt this strong before. So, we've decided? Romanda smiled as she held her husband's cheek. Yes, I will pass out the remaining vials to our most valiant warriors. Chala, wife, take yours. I will meet with the spiders now. T'Challa looked over the serum and shrugged his shoulders. The two injected themselves and felt the same surge of energy coursing through them as their powers and physiques were greatly enhanced. The king made his way down the stairs to see the spiders goofing off and playing with the baby. Despite the chaos of it all, it actually made Chaka less weary of the group. Why would you give the baby a web shooter? Richie and Benji's MJ stared at culprit. To be fair, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Benji shrank back at their intimidating pressure. I have to admit, it's a cool idea, and look, she's a natural, Richie spoke in his counterpart's defense. Annie hung from the web line attached to the roof and laughed as the tension from the web made her twirl back and forth. Come on down to Auntie Gwen. Ghost Spider held her hands out in case the baby fell. Are all nieces and nephews like this? Davis paled as watched her swing side to side. As she giggled at their attempts to catch her, Richie's Annie looked up at her father with puffy cheeks. Maybe I should make some for. Don't even think about it, 1610, MJ frowned. The jealous look on Annie's face turned to one of sadness. She stuck her lip out and pouted as she gave her father one of the most adorable puppy dog eyes that they had ever seen. I know, Richie put his daughter in his arms and whispered. I'll make you some later. I heard that. She'll be fine, Peter walked up and gave her a stern look. Annie, come down right now. You're scaring your mom. Benji's Annie pouted as she jumped on his head and crawled onto his chest. Bah! 616C. Annie held her arms out for a hug. Lucky you're so cute, Peter gave her a hug as he placed her on his shoulder. How'd you do that? Both the parents asked. Mild telepathy. I just communicated with my feelings and thoughts, Peter said as Annie held onto his face and giggled. Ahem, Chaka cleared his voice. Oh hey. Looks like you tested the serum's efficiency yourself. How is it? I'm curious about comparing the combination of the serum and the previous augmentation combined versus just using the SS serum. The effects were as rumored, the king replied, still feeling the surging change within himself. So, should I take this as an agreement? Before I agree to your proposal, I want to know. Why do you care? What drives you to be a hero? Peter thought for a second and then handed off baby Annie to her mother. Do you know who the philosopher Edmund Burke is? I am familiar with many philosophers, but I'm afraid I haven't heard of that one. Not surprising, he was an Irish statesman born in Dublin during the 17th century. Look him up sometime, he's got some interesting thoughts. But the one I want to focus on right now, this one. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Peter looked to his fellow spiders. Each of us were granted extraordinary powers, whether it's our minds of the abilities of the spider. We have all this power, yet we're just supposed to stand by while evil prospers. He shook his head as he walked up to his fellow Peters. In each of our timelines, our uncle gave us something precious. A code to live by, a purpose that makes us who we are. Benji and Richie smiled softly, while Noir nodded his head while crossing his arms. Porky grinned under his mask. With great power, comes great responsibility, they all spoke in unison. I live by this creed, our silly little motto. So, Chaka, I grant you my power, so I ask you use it responsibly. Help me bring peace and prosperity to this nation. Help us push all of humanity to the next stage as a species. Peter then thought of something else and smiled. Another smart guy I know said that if we're going to go to space, we should probably fix Earth first. Ooh, and who said that? My dad, Peter crossed his arms. Chapter 95, Issue 95, The Amazing Web Part 9. The group went back into the conference room and Peter discussed what he had planned in finer details. Firstly, I want to mimic what your other self did in the South African King timeline. The good news is that uplifting the other villages can go quicker towards the sea because of how close Wakanda is to it. Meaning that we can recall the troops you send out to reinforce other groups. Peter then made Webster put up a holographic display of South Africa's map. The white dots are villages, while the ones with stars are where powerful spellcasters, metahumans, and most brilliant people live. Squad A will find and recruit them. Then, bit by bit, we'll swallow up the citizens and make them Wakandans. How will you convince them to leave their homes? The king questioned. How? By offering them heaven, of course. I know you can't support the massive influx of new citizens, but you have me and my fiancé's tech to help out with that. We can extend Wakanda's city and make countless buildings to support every last person in Africa if need be. Peter created a working 3D model of Wakanda with his reality gemstone before MJ dismantled it and rebuilt a machine that used the natural environment's resources to build sturdy buildings and houses. We can upscale this, so providing a place to live and food to eat isn't an issue, MJ smiled. If you give us the schematics of how you want to build up the city, we can build according to that plan. Good to hear, Chaka looked to his daughter. How quick can you make those plans? Piece of cake. I'll just think of it like grinding a Minecraft world. We'll need someone to let them know of the construction taking place and what becoming Wakandan means. The people's hearts won't move without proof, the queen informed. Ah, propaganda squad, that's a good idea, Peter snapped his fingers. It's not propaganda if it's true, Noir pinched the bridge of his nose. What are the blue dots for? Shuri questioned. Places that have the highest priority, starvation, droughts, animal attacks, disease, villages that have issues with raiders, basically, those that are in the most in need or in danger of immediate bodily harm. Then the red dots. Chala spoke up. Targets. Criminal organizations, slavers, warlords, and the red stars are their bases of operation. The red crowns are the leaders of the prospective criminal enterprises. Then I'm guess the green dots are those that are well off, farmlands, and small towns, Romanda added. Yep, they're just as important, but not in any danger, Peter gave the queen a thumbs up. The black dots are building areas, zones selected for reforestation, water capture facilities, and resource sites. Ooh, we get to use the green gun? Please say we can use Parker Industries' green gun, Shuri's eyes sparkled. Is that what you kids are calling it? Peter lifted a brow. What's the green gun? He didn't tell you? Peter pulled out the newest model. The old one was bigger and more suited to terraforming. This one was handheld and could be used on individual plants. He pointed at an azalea plant and shot it until it grew to double its girth and size. Hey, isn't that Green Man's gun? How'd you get that? Guy always set his devices to self-destruct if anyone held it but him. For build sites, we should put priority on making farmland, animals, and water storages. Right, people got to eat. I create cattle farm and other produce factories before the buildings. We shouldn't overtake nature completely, rather than build in between where it's most bountiful. I'll make sure not to overpopulate the city building designs. Shuri nodded her head and tried to think of a way to blend nature with a massive technologically advanced city. My machine uses the natural environment to make the house, and it uses the biggest resource to make materials from. So, if that material is dirt, the machine will build using recompressed stone. I can work those into my design. Wait, does it tear down the plant life too? Yes, but it also leaves a sapling in its place and a green gun option to grow them. By the way, I'm a pretty big fan of Minecraft too. Peter got me hooked on it. World building is fun, Peter chuckled, and it was a good practice. What's Minecraft? Several of the clueless ones asked. You can download the game and use my profile, just don't mess with any of my worlds, Peter said as he pushed a few screen options on his holographic display. Benji and Richie looked at the game with interest. It's a block game. Hey, I upgraded it several times. It's basically the same thing, but I overhauled the world graphics to look real. The only time you see blocky structures is when you use the player character to do stuff with it. How did you deal with the slopes? Shuri asked. I added percentage blocks for every block in the game. You get bits of other materials and objects you mine or dig. It fills up until it gets to 100%, and then it gets deposited in your inventory as a block. Ooh, that's actually pretty good. Can I get a copy of the O.S? Guys, maybe finish the game plan first before game talk, Richie shook his head. Sorry about that. I tend to get sidetracked sometimes. So, anyways, let's see. 3 types of grain, dozens of various vegetables and plant produce, and livestock first. Building residential houses second, and then larger facilities like schools and production factories for workers later. Shuri started sketching something into a pad with a stencil. I'm curious, if you have all this power, why not fight the war by yourself? Chala asked. For one, it's not my country. The change has to start with the people. Africans should deal with African problems just like Americans should deal with American problems. While I could probably go scorched earth and angry god mode, relying on me is only a temporary solution, but if the change starts at the foundation, the effects will be more solidified and the desire for a better tomorrow will take root, Chaka mentioned as he looked like he just had some sort of revelation. You have a mind of a king, young Parker. Would you care to become a Wakandan counselor? We could use someone with your strategic thinking. Ah, you're making me blush. But my interest lay elsewhere. I want to raise my family in a peaceful world and enjoy my life to the fullest. I see, a shame. My son would benefit from such a thing. Well then, let's move on to the next issue. How long do you think it'll take for the South African king to catch on to what's happening? Chaka questioned. Well, as long as we avoid the major cities, a couple of days at most, Benji commented. But with 50+ superpowered Black Panther units and us, well, we can knock that out in one. As long we have a fast enough ship, Richie added. Oh, our ships are plenty fast, Shuri smirked. We should start with propagating information about Wakanda to these tribes first, Noir spoke up as pointed to a few spots on the map. When you want information to spread quicker, you need to pick and choose the best locations. These villages are right along the biggest river in Africa, and all animals congregate at the water hole. Something you learn from your days as a reporter? Peter asked. My uncle and aunt taught me plenty from their soapbox years, Noir nodded his head. I can't help but wonder, when are you from? Shuri asked. His timeline is roughly around the age of America's Great Depression. Is that what our era in history is called? Damn, it actually fits, Noir MJ sighed. Oof, tough break, Shuri cringed. It'll get better. Seeing the strongest in action has made me rethink my methods. Perhaps I can save my world in the same way he's saving his. Always said you had a heart of gold, Tiger, Noir MJ winked at him. We'll plant informants to spread information along the biggest water channels. The Queen got them back on track. So, we need a propaganda squad, a migration squad, and a recruitment squad for the first phase of the plan. The second phase will be making assault squads for hitting criminal organizations, slave camps, and warlords. Once we cut off the chain of money that flows into the kingdom, the South African king will probably catch wind of what's going on. However, we are but a myth to them. Our secrecy shall become our greatest weapon. Chaka could see the moves Peter had planned. Phase 3 is the dethronement of the current king. When he sends out his armies, we make our move. The capital will be on high alert, but if Shuri can sneak into Avengers Academy, then I suppose that's a non-issue for you guys. Once the South African king is custody, the army will fall before a single blow is struck. But we need to act quickly, Ramonda grabbed her chin while in deep thought. As quick as lightning, MJ nodded her head. To show we aren't the same as the previous king, we offer a trial and for the people to decide his fate, Morales added. It won't be pretty. I've been reading this guy's file for a while now, and if half of this stuff in here is real, then I know what they'll be calling for. An execution. Which is what we're aiming for, Chaka nodded his head. Those that are still in favor will hold their tongue once they see what punishment awaits them, Chala said as he crossed his arms. Long enough to cull the herd, Porky rubbed his stubble. Maybe put in a few of your own men as politicians before the trial. That should make it easier to uncover deal with those oinkers. A very wise idea. Pigman, Chala still couldn't quite wrap his head around a cartoon world where he was an animal. I'd get White Wolf and his pack on my side before doing any of this. He can make a good informant with his ties to the police force, Peter commented. I'll give him a call, Ramonda said as she looked at the map again. Now on to some extra help to absorb the continent. I know a few X-Men that would be glad to help. Storm, being the one with the biggest connections to South Africa, is a prime choice. They pretty much worshipped her as a goddess, so we can definitely use that to our advantage. Peter pulled up a file of people that would prove helpful for their endeavor. It's been a while since I've seen Ororo, MJ smiled. Ororo? You know her? Chala showed a surprised expression. The Queen let out a knowing smile as she said, How is that little rain dancer doing? It's been ages since we last saw her. When Chala was young, he used to sneak out of the barrier to go visit her. Mom, please, not the time, Chala sighed as the rest of the room snickered a couple of times. Right, any other suggestions? Brother Voodoo. You need to snag this guy up to lead your magic division. In one reality, his gift for magic was so powerful that he became the next Sorcerer Supreme. Peter pulled up the file. Jericho Drum, 25 years old, birthplace Haiti, current residence, South Africa, master of voodoo and a student of the mystic arts. He's a bit young right now, but his talent is top tier in this universe. With the right training and guidance, you can set up an African school of magic. And this is just the right guy to lead it. Chala was moving through the various files of African metahumans and mystics. To think such talents were, how did you put it, at our front doors? Exactly my point, Peter smiled. Once Wakanda has united South Africa, I'll start making my way north to deal with other issues. The Middle East? Richie lifted a brow. Yeah, there are so many problems there. Hopefully things will cool down there once I start reforesting the deserts. Both figuratively and literally, Benji followed up. You should leave some of the desert near the ocean. Jungles and rainforests depend on their nutrients, Shuri spoke up. I'll keep that in mind, Peter nodded his head. A canyon or massive forest maybe. A canyon wall is a pretty good idea, but it'd have to be shaped to funnel the air in the pattern we need. Shuri scribbled down some more notes. You're in charge of landscaping design. I'm sure you can figure it out. So, what's next on the agenda? MJ asked. Now, we start operations. I imagine it'll take a couple of days to get your propaganda squad together and give them suitable information to spread. What do we do until then? Davis asked. Well, we are in a hidden utopia. Might as well act like the tourist we are and go shopping or something. I'll get you back home and pick you guys up when we start this whole crazy plan. I can show you around, Shuri spoke up. You have work to do. Her father stopped his daughter before she could even stand up. Do you take USD? What's the exchange rate? All of the MJs asked in unison. We do take U.S currency. Chaka sweated a bit. Sorry, but your money is useless here, the other Peters said to their wives as they shook their heads. Yeah, but strongest here can cover the bill. Benji wrapped his arm around Peter's shoulder. You know, I haven't checked my bank account in a while. Peter pulled up the file. Would you look at that? I'm a 15 billion. 15B, bill. Benji couldn't believe his eyes. You got more than me, Richie laughed. That without adding in my share too, MJ smirked. Ah, come on, Benji cried. Why does money hate me so much? Dude, if you're looking for easy money, just copy some of my inventions and sell them in your universe. It's not like copyright laws exist across dimension. MJ can even look at films we have that they don't and snag it to further her own career. We'd be idiots not to take advantage of our multidimensional web of information. Heck, I'm sure you already got some prototype of my inventions just in weapon form for your villains. Ah! Benji's mouth opened, but he couldn't formulate a proper sentence. It was that easy, bro, Davis started laughing. I swear, you have access of worlds of infinite possibilities, and money is still an issue for you. I'm starting to doubt your intelligence. Ha ha ha. Oh, he's got you there, babe, Benji's MJ started laughing. Benji let out a sigh of resignation. Oh, and a monocolored human might be a bit too much for the people here. Peter snapped his fingers and gave the two black and white beings color. Oh, this is wow. Noir MJ looked at her hands. You hair. It's red. Morales shook his head. Welcome to the wonderful world of color. Paintings will never be the same, Richie laughed. Oh, and you don't need all the infinity stones. Just your universe's reality stone to give it color. I think it should still be in space being guarded by an asteroid-sized tentacle monster called Zyamber. I can give the coordinates and the vehicle to get there. I'll think about that. Traveling the stars is rather romantic, DVMJ replied. Don't know about the giant tentacle monster though, Noir sighed. My suggestion to each of you is to get rid of your infinity stones in your universe. Damn things never do anything good but cause trouble. How'd you deal with yours? Benji asked. I sent them to the end of space and time for the Phoenix Force to rebirth the entire universe. When the last star dies, they'll appear before the Phoenix to start the next Big Bang. I never thought of it like that, Richie and Benji spoke in unison. They may be nasty little stones responsible for the largest kill counts any universe has ever seen, but even they have their intended use. Great, let's go. Porker shouted before Shuri grabbed him. You're coming with me, Spider-Pig. I'm not dealing with the panic a cartoon hero might cause. That's not fair. This is discrimination. Peter and the rest laughed and started walking towards the door when he stopped, scratched his head. Almost forgot. Gonna need a tour guide. Anyone you can recommend, Your Majesty? I think I know just the person, Chaka smiled. Author note, $1 imaginary to those who can guess is going to be their escort. Chapter 96, Issue 96, The Amazing Web Part 10. The group sat across from a very silent, and by the look of it, a very annoyed tourist guide. So it's nice to see you again, Peter held out his hand. Oyoke was tapping her foot against the ground before saying, this is not how the leader of Wakanda's most elite task force should be spending time. Think of it like a break, Peter shrugged his shoulders. I don't take breaks, provides an enemy to slip through my security parameter. Think of it like a short vacation? Benji said as if it were a question. Oyoke lifted a brow as if to ask him if he were serious. Dude, somebody say something and make this less awkward. Richie looked to his right. I don't know, man. I'm still freaked out that she didn't freak out over the whole multiverse thing. Morales whispered back. This chick a stone wall, Davis replied. You're 2 feet away, whispering does no good, Oyoke lifted a brow. I got it. Wanna hold my baby? Benji held out Mayday. Ooh, that's a great idea. Richie joined him. The 2 babies blinked with wide eyes before smiling and grabbing out to Oyoke's face. Ahem, while they are quite adorable. If you're anything like my Oyoke, I know you can't resist this cuteness, Benji added. Give it up and hold the babies, just let it happen, Richie nodded his head. It's cathartic. The 2 fathers spoke in unison. The 2 babies giggled with an innocent smile that melted her heart in an instant. She took both Annie's and smiled at them. A child is a treasure, you shouldn't be handing them out to anyone. It's a good thing we know you aren't anyone. Benji and Richie MJ smiled across from the now doting auntie they remembered. You 2 are so cute. Oyoke felt them grab her finger. And quite the grip. She inherited more than her dad's smarts, MJ said as she made funny faces to get more giggles out of the babies. So, they are spiders like yourself? Yep, and the cutest ones I've ever seen. Yes, you are. Spitterette scratched one of their bellies with her finger. They took turns holding the babies and playing with them until they arrived at the capital and the biggest shopping district in Wakanda. Of course, money wasn't an issue, and they ended up going on quite the spree. Peter spent roughly $500,000 in just one day. They didn't hold back at all and bought whatever caught their eyes. When they all took a coffee break, they treated Audiobook and chatted back and forth about their lives. "So, what did you buy?" Noir asked. "Same as you, books," Peter replied with a smile. "Why though? Everything is digital these days." Miles Morales scratched his head. "You kids just don't understand the allure of words on papers," Noir sighed. "There's just something about turning the page that hits different than scrolling on a tablet," Peter added. "Boomers," the Gwens and Miles smirked. "That is the dumbest thing you two have said yet." "I hate people who do that crap," Peter's eyebrow twitched. "Seriously, who does that? Classifies an entire generation based off record birth rates and not accomplishments. You know why so many had so babies back then? Because the economy was at its best. I mean, we Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Industrial Age, yet we get called Boomer Age." Benji shook his head. "Shame the kids these days had to mess it up. It was pretty much a golden age in America history. That's what we should call it, the golden age." "Hey, I'm working on fixing it. I'll have you know that due to the advancements of technology, schools in America have improved greatly. There are tons of new jobs, crime has dropped significantly, and we've managed to weed out countless corrupt politicians and government officials. With the Avengers, I helped make the new golden age. In comparison, your age was silver at best." Peter shook his head. The group started laughing while Audiobook nodded her head. "Respect your elders, kids. They've lived longer so they have great wisdom to impart, the good ones anyways." "We'll keep that in mind," the Gwens and Miles replied as they saw her give them a harsh stare. They shivered a little, but all that tension faded when she went back to feeding the two babies. "Say ah. Ah." Peter took a few pictures and sent them to the others, who then in turn thanked him for it. After a few minutes of joking around, Peter returned with the others and sent them home for the day. He then worked with MJ and Shuri on making plans for the new city extensions. They spent 4 days spreading information to the various villages and towns until a group from the X-Men arrived. All who were of once natives of Africa. With Storm helping to spread the word, they were finally able to make their move. He summoned back his friends and gathered them alongside the new super-enhanced members of the Royal Guards. Audiobook was the first one who had gotten the SSS upgrade and stood with a smile on her face as she was debriefed on the situation. "Keep in mind, some of these enemies we'll be facing today have extraordinary powers. I've given out a list of targets that contain weaknesses and strategies for handling them in a fight. I expect you to spend this day going over and memorizing the information. A quarter of our forces will be for relocating new citizens in newly constructed parts of the city. From this day on, Wakanda will save Africa from itself," the king announced as the men and women cheered. Audiobook has been waiting for this moment her whole life. She was a supporter of Chaka's father's dream to unite South Africa under a single king, but she was also very loyal, so she'd never voiced such an opinion. She didn't know how Peter had done it, but she was more than happy to finally have a chance to rid the Great Plains of the scum that have plagued it for so long. "These brave heroes have chosen to join us in our endeavor." Benji, Richie, Noir, Porker, the Gwens, and both Miles stood up in what looked like a panther-style spider armor. "We must keep their true identities a secret until the war is over. But know this, they have your king's trust and promise to do everything in their power to help complete this impossible endeavor." They had doubts, not of their king's judgment, but of the new stranger's level of skill. When Audiobook walked up and shook their hands, the doubts faded in an instant. If their leader trusted their abilities, then it was more than enough for them. The guards let out a cheer as the king commanded them prepare for war. "Well, I got work to do with MJ, you guys ready for tomorrow?" "I won't lie, we're pretty nervous." "First war?" Benji asked as he sat next to Davis. "You've been in a war?" "A few, one that was completely secret too," Benji chuckled. "Did you?" "No, I kept my vow. I didn't have to kill, and you won't either. Just focus on doing what you've always been doing." "Which is?" Davis lifted a brow. "Being a hero." Richie came over and sat next to him. "Whatcha up to?" Ghost Gwen popped her head down from the ceiling. "Hey Gwen, how are you not nervous?" "Who said I'm not? This is definitely the biggest operation I've ever take part of, yet, when that guy is calling the shots, it's just easier to go with the flow." "Relax me," Morales sat on his other side. "Confidence is key." "I can see your knees shaking," Spiderette chuckled. "I'm just excited." Morales looked the other way. "We may be part of the attack force, but it's nothing we haven't done before. Beat up the bad guys, arrest them, save people," Richie said as he gave him a nod of confidence. "But most of all, stay safe." Benji rubbed his head before getting up. The Parker from another universe then walked up to Peter and asked, "So, you got everything you need?" "Yeah, Benji. I do." "Having second thoughts?" "No, I know this is the right move. The longer I sit on my hands, the more people will suffer for it. I believe this with all my heart." I'm just worried about if things get out of control. I guess I have to put my trust in Chakara's army, Peter sighed as he started walking away. I've got a few cities to build. Take care of those rookies and I'll give you all something special before you go home. All right, boss. Peter met up with MJ and Shuri to head out ahead of time and get started, and within minutes of flying on their airships, they were flying over the very edge of the barrier. Here are the plans. Shuri held up a file on the tablet with an excited expression. I'll take east, you take west, Peter said as he held out his hand and took the tablet. He then created everything MJ would need for her machines before he jumped out of the aircraft. While Shuri marveled over the components he made, MJ used her ability to make the young princess' eyes shine as bright as stars. So cool. Shuri walked around the large 3 by 3 foot cube-shaped box. MJ smiled at her and said, "Can you take me to the drop points? We're going to have to hurry if we want to match his pace." A series of buildings popped up out of nowhere, drawing everyone's attention. A river formed instantly, trees sprouted like magic, and healthy green grass spread out everywhere the eye could see. Animals and fields of food started popping up in various locations alongside the buildings and equipment need to run them. Hey, think you can keep up? I might finish before you guys leave, Peter said over the comms. So, it's a race, huh? Move the ship to the marked locations. Shuri pulled up a screen with all the locations they'd need to visit in just 7 hours. They flew off to the far end of their construction zone and started dropping more and more of the boxes to the ground. The moment they hit the dirt, the machines turned on instantly and grew legs and arms before it suddenly started converting the area with alchemy into various materials needed for building. MJ then downloaded the schematic Shuri had sent her and watched as it started constructing entire buildings for residential sectors alongside planting and growing dozens of different types of trees and grass. You have to let me take one apart, Shuri begged with her eyes. Sure, when we're done. On to the next location. In total, she made roughly 500 black box building machines that roamed Africa. Besides constructing entire cities, it was expanding the barrier of Wakanda bit by bit until it covered almost every last bit of open space they could take. At the crack of dawn, MJ and Shuri had returned to the center of the project and saw Peter waiting for them. Come on, I thought we made great time, Shuri cried out. You did, I only finished 3 hours ago, Peter chuckled. It looks good, MJ said as she saw the spiraling buildings made with vibranium and other various rare materials. How's your side look? The spider hero asked. MJ passed over the tablet and he looked through the images. Sweet. You redistributed the natural resources and made a big hole for water storage. 10 of them are about 2.5 by 2.5 kilometers holes. I used alchemy to draw water from the air and environment while the dirt was transformed to stone basins filled and capped off. There's enough clean water for them to drink for thousands of years. Not bad for only using materials that are on site. These things can probably be used to terraform entire planets if we tweak them a bit here and there. We could use magic to create materials like water and air, MJ said as they started geeking out. As their discussion became more complicated, the pilot looked at Shuri and asked, "These are the most popular American heroes?" "Yeah, aren't they great?" Shuri grinned as she absorbed the information from their conversation. They eventually flew back to the city around the time the migration and assault squad were moving out. Peter played the part of man in the wheelchair and oversaw the entire operation. Richie and Benji worked together in taking down every last drug den and corrupt enterprise, funding them with a team of the new Assault Panther Quadrant. With their years of experience fighting against drug lords and Kingpin on top of having their locations and weaknesses, it was rather simple for them to track down and remove their targets with ease. But they didn't stop there. They went after any big-time villain they could get their hands on. In just one day, they managed to take down Moses Magnum, Radioactive Man, the entire Sons of the Serpent Cult, and some seriously messed up serial killers. Miles and Miles teamed up with Porky to hit drug money and stashes all across the African continent. They took the money and stored them in spatial rings made by Reed and Peter and turned them over to the Allied forces. The money would be returned to the people while all the drugs were destroyed. They had to take down quite a few goons, but with cartoon powers, advanced tech, and mechanical symbiote-empowered Spider Sable, they stood very little chance. There was a guy calling himself Lord Carnage that had some interesting sonic tech, but he went down in a single blow. Gwen went after criminals of all sorts. She cleared out villages with the rescue squad and got them aid when they needed it most. Sometimes that included taking down warlords that were terrorizing the place or several villains from the Black Panther Rouge catalog. However, they were surprised to meet a man by the name of Tetu. He was an older man, but his powers to manipulate nature aided them in a fight against a giant white ape. Tetu was once a Wakandan warrior, but he left to search for something greater than himself, discovering wild magic that allowed him to manipulate the very nature around him. He showed a keen interest in what the Wakandans were up to and decided to act like an ally until he saw what was going on. Until then, Gwen made their way across the African continent rescuing impoverished villages and beating up bad guys with plenty of ease. They even managed to successfully recruit Brother Voodoo into the ranks of Wakandan citizen. When they horde of ships finally completed their journey, they ended up in a massive pre-built city big enough to hold roughly 2 billion people. Brother Voodoo and Tetu couldn't believe their eyes as they walked into the city limits. Houses were given away and land rights with them. Farms, schools, factories, everything was provided for. Of course, this was only for the migration. Once everyone settled in, they would have to pay taxes and work, just like any other living city. Luckily, their new rulers were kind and just. With the tech provided by Wakanda, it would be easy to teach them how to live and work in this place. Noir and the White Wolf worked together with their respective squads, tying up communications for several factors while spreading false information. Occasionally, they had to bust up some spies and politicians that were catching on, even going so far as to hijack a few satellites to feed it doctored photos and video feed. Black Panther, Oyoke, and her crew of super soldiers took down hundreds upon hundreds of slavers, raiders, entire warlord factions, destroyed the facilities built to steal African resources such as rare metals and minerals, and took down some of the biggest villains in his Rouge Gallery. Before, they may have given him trouble, but with the extra boost from the super soldier serum, the Black Panther and his assault squad were able to handle them with ease. When Peter saw the results, he couldn't help but smile as he thought, man, they weren't kidding. An army of these guys could destabilize an entire nation. I wonder how long until Fury notices. Peter continued with the operation, and it went on well into the next day without any major issues. He even joined the recruitment and rescue squad now that the building and terraforming was finished. MJ went with the migration squad and met up with Storm and the other X-Men that came to help. Needless to say, it continued to their way, right up until the third day, both surprising and upsetting Peter. Surprised that they managed to keep it under wraps longer than expected, but pissed that the South African king called in the Avengers claiming that the Wakandans were an alien force attacking. He called up Fury and was tapping his foot against the grated floors of the aircraft he was riding in. What? Ignore what's going on in Africa. The tech is terrestrial in origin. And on another note, why in the hell did you even agree to meet with that asshole? It's our job, wait. How do you know what's going on in Africa is human in origin? Fury pinched the bridge of his nose. Samantha, Deep Winter Protocol. Going dark mode, the I answered. The hell was that? A private and secure setting for our call. We have that. Fury smiled. Ever hear of a place called Wakanda? No. Well, they're like the African version of Atlantis or El Dorado. Ancient, powerful, sitting on a mountain of mythical metals, and have highly advanced technology. Now do me a favor and pull back all Avengers. Do you have anything to do with this? I think it'll all be made clear in a couple of days. Until then, make sure they know that it isn't an alien attack. A lot of shit is about to hit the fan, and I don't want the Avengers anywhere near fan. I'll send some files to let you in on a prisoner transport log to use for the new prison we've been talking about. You finished it? Yeah, it's done. Alright, let's see this list. Fury wasn't a dumb person. It only took him a bit to figure out Peter's plan after seeing the hundreds of criminals scrolling past his eyes. Spring cleaning, huh? You're going down a tightrope, son. This is a risky play. I know. Do you disapprove? Hell no. I know you're not one to start something you can't finish. So, fuck him up, Avenger. Only wish I could be there to help, Fury grinned. You want to. I can portal you over. We're almost done with the migration. You know what, things have been pretty lax around here since Tony and you completed the Worker A.is programming. I haven't had a chance to dust off my knuckles in a week. Ha ha ha. Well then, a portal opened up in the aircraft, shocking some of the squad units traveling with him. Fury stepped through. This is quite the operation you have going. Reminds me of early days. Quit showing off, that's my bit. Peter smirked and hung up the call. Deal with the Avengers. I got citizens to save. Well, this is your mission. Alright, I'll follow lead, kid, just this once. Glad to have you on board. Wakanda Warriors, this is Fury, co-leader of the Avengers and first council member. Fury, say hi to the Wakandan Warriors. Fury gave a polite nod. So I hear we're going to kick a dictator off his throne. I haven't done that since '67. Put that one together quick, didn't ya? Peter sighed. How long you think I've been at this, kid? Fury put his hand on his earpiece. He'll get me Tony. Tell him to set up a press conference. Ooh, there's a good idea. Convince the public by getting the expert to inform them, Peter chuckled. Also, I'll be sending you a file through my Deep Winter profile. You know what to do. Peter looked up at him. Deep Winter? What, you think you're the only one with a secure method of communication? Deep Winter is the best you could come up with? Do you have any idea how common that name is in the military? I like the way you work, kid, but you still have a lot learn, Fury grinned. You played me. How long have you known about them? Wouldn't you like to know? Fury smiled. Ooh, might as well get you suit. How a gunmetal color. Peter snapped his finger and put Fury in a Silver Panther outfit. You do know how to mimic a cat, right? Meow. Fury looked rather upset before he pointed his finger. Remember, I'm in charge. Peter's grin grew wider. I shouldn't have tried to play with you like that, should I? Oh, he's learning, Peter laughed. Seriously, What's with the cat outfit? It's the sacred animal of the Wakandan people. Their leaders and most powerful warriors take on its aspect through their own super solider creation method. So, they're nimble, flexible, and they always land on their feet. I think I can pull that off, and give me back my damn gun. You don't need it. That suit there is completely made of proto-adamantium and can absorb, store, and eject kinetic forces. Guns put holes in people. There's no killing in this mission. Right, give my damn gun. Peter handed it over. I mean it, Fury, don't shoot anyone. It can't be traced. That's not why I don't want you to shoot them. Peter pinched the bridge of his nose. Look, we're going after a warlord by the name of Bosco Ntaganda. He's also known as the Terminator by his men. He's something of a warlord for rent, the king's personal slaver too. After helping to overthrow the Hutu-led government in Rwanda during the much-publicized civil war, he set his sights on Congo, where he helped overthrow the government there as well and was made head of their military. Bosco is responsible for somewhere in the region of 800,000 combined deaths, not to mention the countless human rights abuses. Any time an African revolted against their rule and tried to set a democracy, the king would send this guy in to wipe them out. Sounds like he needs to meet my time cop. I can't believe you named your gun that. Don't diss time cop. Peter looked at the map and pointed to it. He's expected to have around 5,000 men in his encampment. We're going to make them disappear. You're already going after the king's pawns. I came in at the endgame. Save the best for last. The firing pin, Fury held out his hand. No shooting. This is payback for me hiring Deadpool, isn't it? Oh, he's an effective agent, and I've put with worse, but yes. I mean it, Fury. I don't want to heal scum, don't make me. Chapter 97. Issue 97. The Amazing Web Part 11. The cloaked aircraft hovered over a large military compound before it opened, and a troop of Panthers and Spider Hero hopped out. Peter looked over the encampment and did a primary scan of the environment. Huh? There's more than expected here. I guess the king isn't dumb. Nope, just a corrupt asshole, Fury commented. Slave barracks over there, Peter nudged his head. Child soldiers robbed from their homes. Thomas Lubanga is here as well. They're trying to hire him to capture more, a Wakandan corrected him as he landed next to the two. Use comms only. I'll take care of getting them all in one location. 2 of you are on rescue duty, the rest, prepare to ambush. Fury, you're with me. Peter started climbing down the side of the building. I can't climb walls. With that suit you can, Peter sent back over the comms. Fury reached out to the wall and clenched his hand against it. Claws came out and he noticed that just a few inches of penetration were enough to hold up his entire frame with ease. Huh? Neat. Think I'll keep this thing. He slithered down the wall and passed by a television with an American news station playing. Tony Stark was standing in front of a podium explaining how the barrier that's been rapidly swallowing South Africa was made by human hands, and that they were currently trying to figure out where it came from. Peter scaled across the side of the building until he came across a gated window. He waved Fury over and pointed inside while whispering, according to Noir's info, his office should be here. Fury peeked inside and shook his head. Something's up, lights are off. No thermals either. Peter crawled back up to the roof and looked over at the slave encampment. Panthers, report. We're in position. But something off, the children are armed. Ah, he's caught on to us. He must have put out some false information. It's an ambush. A mass murderer he may be, but apparently, he's not a fool. Webster, hack the cameras. Get me a lead on this guy. A series streams came across Peter's eye lenses. He's not here. Well, think you can hide from me, you got another thing coming. I have a hunch even if we take down the ambush, he won't show himself. Probably miles away watching everything unfold, at least that's how I'd do it, Fury commented. Peter used his space and mind gemstone to locate his target and grinned. Got him, he's in the bunker below the. Apparently, he had some men dig a nice hole for him to hide in. Little Rat probably thinks he's safe hiding in the same place he's supposed to launch an ambush. Not such a bad idea. Who'd suspect the target would stick around the most dangerous area? Most people would think he'd take your safer option. Unfortunately, he met me, Peter smirked. He then opened a portal into the bunker ceiling and jumped through with Fury at his side. With their enhanced vision, they were able to spot both warlords and 12 armed guards in the room. They moved like lightning and knocked out the guards one by one with ease until it came down to just the 2 warlords. Who are? Was as far as Lubagna got before Peter choked him out. What are you doing here? Who are you? Bosco tried to stand from his chair when Fury pushed him down. Sit down, you motherfucker. An American, what? Shut up, Fury cracked the back of his head with the butt of his gun. You're going to order every able soldier into the compound right now. What? You heard him. Push that button on the microphone and give the order. Peter lifted a brow. What makes? Peter put a realistic water gun to his nose. Say what again? Go on, I fucking dare you to. Wah. Peter pulled the trigger and squirted him in the face. He let out a chuckle before knocking him out and opened a portal for transferring everyone in the room onto his prison planets for processing. Say hi to Kingpin for me. I bet he isn't doing too well in exile. Peter laughed as he tossed through the portal. Didn't we need him? Nah, Webster. Did you finish analyzing his vocal cords? Yes, the symbiote replied in the warlord's voice. Good, you know what to do, Peter said as he hit the comms device. Get to the compound now. They've fallen for our trap. Huh, you sound just like him, Fury commented. Peter hit the alarm and watched the feed as hundreds of soldiers raided the compound. While they all gathered, Peter ordered the Wakandan strike force to hit the kids with sleeping gas and take down all enemy targets. Peter and Fury joined the fray, knocking out every last war criminal in the room. The room was pure chaos, bullets flying everywhere, shouts of confusion, and a small platoon of super soldiers tearing through them all with ease. Tanks were revealed and countless dots of men charged towards the compound, but with Wakandan tech on their side, they never got close enough to fire a single shell, and in just mere minutes, over 4,800 raiders were beaten down and arrested. Peter looked at Fury, who was covered in a bit of blood, before he walked up and said, "Get comfortable, there are about 20 more military bases that belong to this guy. Not to mention a list of over 100 warlords and villains waiting to be taken down." "Let me see that list." Peter sent him a link and watched as Fury nodded his head. "I'll get a few other covert agents on this." "Don't, I let you in on this as an individual. This has to be done with African forces. We can't let anyone figure out that we played any part in this." "Right, so what are you getting out of this?" "A safer world and the king as a new council member," Peter answered. The super spy walked over to the kids and said, "What do we do with them?" "I'll scan their memories and erase any brainwashing. Hopefully their parents are still alive. If not, Wakanda will raise them." "Right, and the rest?" "Prison planet?" "Prison planet," Fury nodded his head. A larger Wakandan aircraft landed next to them and started taking every child while tossing the others into the portal to the prison planet that MJ made. After the place was cleaned up, Peter boarded the speedest aircraft they had and flew off the next target. "Think I should invite Tony? Are you kidding? You know how loud he is." "He is a showboat," Peter nodded his head, "but he's been whining about me not going out on more adventures lately." "Spare me the drama." Fury looked at their rapidly approaching target and cracked his knuckles. "We got work to do." They spent the next 3 days running operations and cleaning up almost the entire land of the South African continent. Hundreds of thousands of raiders, warlords, slavers, and even the most villainous criminals were arrested. The barrier had spread to the point that the South African king could no longer ignore it and sent out his army. With their enemy falling for their trap, Chaka and his most elite stormed the capital and captured the entire royal family. Noir had done his job and provided all the evidence for every last crime all the governing officials were guilty of and rooted out the loyalist for the Wakandans to remove from the picture. The next couple of days the tension around the world was thick enough to cut with a knife. All African trade with other nations had been cut off, criminals from other nations lost their slaves and cheap resource channels, and now, no one knew what was going to happen next. With all of South Africa being cut off from the rest of the world, a defeated army without a single death, and the royal family missing, an announcement was held at a public news station. Chaka came into view and began to explain the origins of his people and their history with South Africa. Needless to say, the entire world was shocked, all except the informed few places that had the tech to learn of the barrier's existence sometime after the aliens invaded. When this news was confirmed, they realized that Chaka was telling the truth. While the whole world watched the press conference, on came on a stream of video footage that showed every last war crime and travesty inflicted upon the citizens of South Africa. The evidence was overwhelming, and as Peter predicted, the people started calling for the deaths of the old royal family. Chaka informed them that from that day forth, all of South Africa would become the United Wakandan States. Cities would be cleaned up, new technology would be brought in, school systems changed, natural environments would be restored, and the people of South Africa would finally know peace. No more war criminals, no more foreign nations exploiting the land and the people of my home, no more famines or plagues, and no more lawlessness. The Wakanda laws are now South African laws. What happened next was a long speech of how Wakandan society worked. All were given a fair chance to learn and adapt. A grace period where no taxes needed to be paid, at least until the new royal family finished settling in. However, even with that, when they learned how little they had to pay, the people became more excited that they had new leadership. "We will hold a trial for the previous royal family, and to make sure that other nations don't get involved with our politics, we will be enlisting the aid of the Avengers as our peacekeepers." The room was filled with gasps and shocked expression. "Those that have profited from our lands, those that have stolen our kin, our men, women, and children, those currently enslaved or being sold, we will wring out the information needed from those involved and all will be returned." The king gave a polite bow to the people. "It is my wish for a brighter tomorrow, a day where good people can live in peace and the wicked punished for the evil deeds. I promise to make this my life's goal, for Wakanda, for Africa, for my people, for a better tomorrow." The cheers erupted in the streets all across the African continent. The news spread like wildfire while strange machines roamed broken-down cities and rebuilt everything. There were many naysayers, people accusing them of occupying and stealing an entire nation. However, many of those people were hired by the ones exploiting Africa for their ill-begotten gains. When their names and relationships with Africa's worst of the worst were revealed, some cities in France, America, and a few other nations nearly dissolved into rioting. However, with the Avengers heading up the investigation, it was basically hunting season for the heroes, and the animals were the criminals that perpetuated the cycle of suffering. Days after the conference, Fury walked into Avengers HQ and right up to Peter's lab. "You son of a... Was this your real goal all along?" Fury put down papers with arrest warrants for several officials from various corrupt governments and dictatorships. Africa is the biggest continent on the planet. The crime hub of that place is a gold mine for heroes like us, Peter smirked. France, Indonesia, more than half of the sovereignty coming out of the Middle East, even famous idols and members of our own government. Kid, I've seen spring cleaning ops, but nothing on this level. There was opportunity, and I took it. Even those that were bribed at Genova can no longer cover up the war crimes these nations constantly violate. Not to mention, it's good press. Not too sure about that. Especially after revealing your prison. Fury lifted a brow. Are you sure about that? Peter turned around his tablet and showed Fury that the public had access to the planet's surveillance feeds. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Anon 002425. Finally, a way to keep these animals in cages they can't get out of. Super stupor. How is this not a bad thing? What's wrong with you people? Isn't just his own private prison? I'm telling you, this Spider-Man is a criminal and a threat to all humankind. The dude OG. Super stupor. Dude, relax. According to the information I have, the whole facility is operated by machines, the criminals' memories are read, and a sentence is handed out to them based on the severity of their crime. Super stupor. But how do we know that's true? He could just be kidnapping people and throwing them in randomly with fabricated evidence. The dude OG. Link, check it out. All the receipts are there. He even gave the code used to build the AI. Some features are missing, mainly for security purposes. Anon 133315. How can you tell it's for security purposes? The dude OG. I'm a programmer, and a damn good one at that. I know my code. I'm game. Who cares? It's non-profit, and most importantly, my taxes aren't paying for it. Homieman. Super stupor. STFU. Spider-Man is a hero. How many times does he have to prove himself for you to get it? Kingpin is a prisoner there. Do you know that he was still running his empire from behind bars when he was New York? Now every corrupt politician and lawman who associated with him is gone. Do you know how peaceful New York has become? The saved 1221. Honestly, I had given up hope for humanity. But this makes me feel like that things might be getting better. My parents were killed by some of these prisoners. I was held prisoner, beaten, brainwashed, and turned into a killer by these very scum that are being locked up. Chaka, any Wakandan, if you're reading this, thank you. Thien Disney. Honestly, I had given up hope. I thought humanity would never be able to pull themselves out of the gutter of filth, but I'm glad to see someone did something. Even if it's a mildly suspicious private prison. Megalomaniac. Thien Disney, it's not private. It's a free public prison that takes care of itself. All of the stuff like food, shelter, and waste management is already paid for. Robots run the place, and since all these resources come from the planet out there at the edge of the solar system, he's not losing or earning a single penny from it. Aren't you glad that these monsters are dozens of AUs away from us? Might Beckersy. So, it's a charity prison? D the good kind. I love you, Spider-Man. Call me. I see what you're getting at. Fury nodded his head. Peter took back the tablet and stood up. I'll be busy with reporters and stuff for the next few days, but eventually, they'll come around. We're progressing quicker and quicker these days. If our society doesn't keep up with the changing times, they'll be left behind. So you want to hold their hands all the way through? No, I just want to show them that there is a path to take that doesn't involve bloodshed and endless struggling. They have to walk on their own 2 feet to keep up. Peter exited the office while Fury followed behind. Well, at least we're not shy of work these days. We'll be hunting some of these guys down for a while. Less when you know their locations and have the keys to their piggy banks, Peter chuckled as he handed off a list of varying information that could help bring down some of the most wicked people on the earth. You know, I had a few ideas on how to handle Russia and China. Go crazy. Just remember, it has to come from the people. We can only give them a bit of aid. Peter held his finger up. I got it. The land belongs to the people. Man, this is going to be fun. Fury grinned. You and I have very different perspectives on the idea of fun, Peter chuckled. Chapter 98. Issue 98. The Amazing Web Part 12. After several days of dealing with the press and politicians trying to shoehorn their way into the whole Africa situation and the various global issues, Peter finally managed to settle things with hundreds of Avenger and S.H.I.E.L.D. operations that brought in millions of criminals worldwide. Those that owned prisons in America made a big stink about him robbing them of business. But he didn't care. They tried everything they could to get in his way, but with the public on his side, with the power of those backing him, they either shut up and coped with no longer having to deal with the worst of the worst and settled with crimes that can be forgiven, or were investigated and arrested once those investigations turned up with solid evidence. It took almost a full month for all his business to be settled. However, operations were still up and running. Branch facilities for the Avengers, or those with affiliations and partnerships, prospered as they started rooting out the world's cancers. The heroes became scalpels that tore through the rotten wounds festering in many different nations. However, it wouldn't happen in just a month. Peter expected it to take years before humanity finally got their shit together, but for now, this was a good start. Peter returned to his house more tired than the time he spared with Thor. Politicians, bureaucrats, dictators, they're all just power-hungry assholes. Peter flopped down on his couch and turned on the television. He wrangled off his tie and felt MJ's hands reach over his shoulder and rested them on his chest. Tough day? Oh, just the same old usual routine. You can't give Mars to the metahumans. You should share all the planets you terraform. Give us your tech. Let us find some way to make money with your prison and exploit them instead of giving regular people jobs. Introduce us to the new king of South Africa so we can plant spies to steal their tech. I swear, if this wasn't necessary to move forward peacefully, I'd sick Deadpool on them. Don't let him hear you say that. MJ hopped over the couch and sat beside him. He'd never rest until they were all dead. How long do I have to keep this up? How long do I have to be the line in the sand? You keep going until they finally get it through their thick skulls. My tiger can't be caged. I just wondering how long until they start sending assassins and spies. Peter showed her an image on his phone. What makes you think they haven't already? She looked at the files of a bunch of captured people sent by politicians and mobsters. Why do you think I sent Kingpin to the Big Pin? He thought our parents were defenseless, hired some thug to try and attack him outside our district. They shot at him, he dodged. The bullet spray ended up hitting civilians. Luckily, Dad's a doctor and equipped with med beds stored in spatial rings. How come we didn't hear about it in the news? I had Samantha delete all footage so people wouldn't ask questions when Fisk went missing. He was the first prisoner, after all. I also made sure to send a message to anyone else that may target my family when I picked him up. Damn. Yeah, I have plenty of patience and mercy for my enemies, but even I have limits. No one messes with my family. So, what do we do about them? Peter sighed. Nothing, it's already taken care of. They're still sending spies, but our security can handle it. They haven't sent another assassin after their last few attempts. I'm guessing they're all sharing a prison with Kingpin? Yeah, Peter looked at the clinging and closed his eyes for a bit. MJ laid her head on his lap and watched TV with him for a while, and before they knew it, they both fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Peter got up and went on patrol as per usual. All was pretty well in his life. The majority of his villains were working for him, humanity was getting ready to take to the stars, and he was about to start working on his newest project, the Ring Worlds. While he was in the middle swinging to a skyscraper, Peter met up with MJ and the two landed next to each other. You got up early? Yeah, had a lot on my mind, Peter smiled as he sat against the wall. You know, I've noticed that we're rarely needed these days. MJ stood on the ledge of the building. Other than some petty crimes, villains just haven't been popping up as much in our city. With all the new heroes getting training, our teams running full force, and the Avengers HQ being here, you'd have to be pretty dumb to start messing around in New York. Mary Jane jumped from the building and shot out a webline. I'll take that as a sign that we're doing a good job, Peter followed after. He truly thought that, but he knew he still had to prepare. Monsters like Thanos, the corrupt Celestials, Eternals, and godly beings still posed a great threat to his world. Maybe I should check out other universes for new power UPS, Peter thought as he swung low to the ground and heard cheers coming from his fellow New Yorkers. He did a little flip trick as he waved at the crowd and shot into the air with incredible speed. As he landed next to a flagpole on the side of a building, Peter pondered if he should use his new experimental X-gene serum. Nah, I'm not done tweaking it, he thought as he jumped off the building and webbed his way throughout the city. When he caught up with Mary Jane, he saw her stopping a robbery. A group of men tried to escape the store and jumped in their car, but Peter webbed their vehicle to the ground seconds before MJ crashed through their windows and pulled them out. Now why are you running? MJ asked as she tossed one of them into a bed of webs. If you guys are scared of me, I know you all must have terrible taste in women. Peter smirked as he watched them all being flung into the web and grabbed the stolen goods to return it to the shop owner. Thank you so much, the shopkeeper smiled as she took back a bag full of money and products. How can I repay you? Nothing needed, ma'am, Peter shot out a web line. Are you sure? Wow, you guys are different than what I imagined. They don't call us the friendly neighborhood couple for nothing, MJ said as she webbed off. While they swung from building to building, Mary Jane caught up and said, Hey, we still have to reward the others for helping with the whole Wakanda thing. Right, I send them their presents after patrolling, Peter nodded his head. The day was quiet for the most part, Just some random thugs and idiots who thought they could get away with crime in their city. There were a few robberies, a mugging attempt, but nothing supervillain related. When it was time for work, Peter sent a clone to the school and went to his lab. More of his clones were there working on various projects. He quickly absorbed their memories and let them return to work while going to various areas to get everyone's presents. Let's see 1610 miles. Kid likes music and art. A top-of-the-line hologram display and computer with a bunch of music from our universe should cover that. Richie is easy. I'll give him some web formulas that I've designed for various criminals, a book on basic magic programming, popular books and movie scripts for Mary Jane, and Spider Family doll set for Annie. He tapped his foot against the floor before making a 2-ton block of pure gold. I swear, if I hear Benji complain about money again after this. Ugh. I'll also include some inventions to give him that sold well here and the same beginner's magic programming book. For his MJ. What can I give a model? Some popular clothing maybe. As for Annie, a bulletproof spiderling suit ought to satisfy her. Peter thought a little longer and smirked as he created a breakable object that would give Noir's world color. He figured it was a lot safer than letting him hunt down the Infinity Stones. He also provided a block of gold and schematics to help improve the technology of his world. Porky, I don't even have to try. A lifetime supply of hot dogs should do and a list of all his villains' weaknesses. Peter placed his hands out and channeled his newest spell. First, connect the web, then find the universe. And now to open a one-way portal. In the various universes, portals opened up next to the individual before the presents all dropped at the feet or houses of all the other spiders. Protection spells were formed around the wrapped gift boxes so that they could only be seen and interact with their intended recipient. Once that was done, Peter returned to his work and started planning various methods to improve his power further. Well, I guess I could start by seeing where fate leads me. Peter sat cross-legged and focused on finding a universe that needed his help and could supply him with a new way to strengthen himself. After a few hours of searching, Peter found himself a few that fit the bill. However, there was one with big issue. The world was in such a precarious situation that when he tried to sense what was happening, his spider senses went crazy. He screamed in agony as he gripped his head and nearly fainted from the pain. It was far worse than when he sensed Spot messing with the multiverse. Far greater than anything he's ever felt before. A corrupt celestial? Jesus Christ. While celestial technology would be of great help to me, messing with that thing in my current state is suicide. However, damn, their world is certainly in the most danger. Peter sighed as he thought of what he could do to help. The only thing I can think of is the necrosword. Maybe I can make my own weapon from celestial remains. He continued to ponder how he'd solve this issue while walking towards his genetic enhancement lab. He stood in front of a serum container with an infinity marking on it. I just need to think of a good medium for it, and it should be done. After running a few experiments, Peter added a few things to the serum and called it a day. I need to complete this before he headed off to the more dangerous universes. He walked to his tech lab and worked for a few hours on his most recent project, the World Forge. If he completed this, humanity would be able to create planets with just the power of technology alone. Of course, the alchemy and magitech World Forge is far superior in all aspects, but he wanted mankind to stand on their own 2 feet for when they finally go forward into the stars. Another few hours passed by quickly, and while he worked, Peter constantly thought about what he needed to do to make a weapon rivaling the all-black sword. What should I call it? I'll figure that out later. For now, I need an intact celestial body. Should I kill Galactus? Is he even a celestial? I know that he's capable of killing a few, and I don't even need to kill my universe's Galactus. I can find an extremely weakened version somewhere out there in the multiverse. Well, since he's a celestial-like being that's capable of killing celestials, he might even make a better weapon. Peter finished up his 10 hours and headed back to Earth while thinking of various ways to make a good weapon. He was so preoccupied with his thoughts that he went to bed still thinking of what he should make and dreamed about it. Chapter 99, Issue 99, The Amazing Web Part 13. When Peter woke up, he gave MJ a kiss and got ready for his usual routine. First was his patrol, teaching at the Avengers Academy. He managed to finally finish his doctorate and got his degree for engineering and molecular sciences. Then came another round of patrolling, and to top it off, helping his dad with the company. Harry's mom had a breakthrough with her plastic-eating fungus and already tested in on a large trash heap floating in the ocean. There were 2 kinds that they successfully developed and made easy to culture. One turned the fungus into a type of plant that cleaned the ocean of contaminants like whale excretions and urine while providing food for aquatic species. The other was for recycling purposes to be used on land. Since the fungus was able to absorb roughly 99.999% of the plastic's biomass, they could be harvested to reuse for making petroleum-based products. With the funding Peter provided, the fungi was put up for a very cheap cost that had a net positive gain for countries and companies to actually recycle their waste, thus resulting in incentivizing those leaders to buy up everything they could get their hands on it no matter the cost. Harry was working with none other than the completely human Jonathan Owen on storage devices that could store entire worlds of products if needed. Their work was coming along rather well, but they still had some issues to work through using the available level of tech they had access to. While the storage rings were popular and sold well, Their internal space was limited to the purity of the spatial gems they had on hand. If Harry and Owen could crack the dark dimension tech they were working on, they'd have access to an infinite source of storage space. Peter currently stood beside his father while they planned out Earth's first interstellar spaceship. They were now competitors with groups like NASA and SpaceX, but with their channel line to the negative zone and its vast resources, there was little other space agencies could do to keep up. Of course, the project they were working on was to build a ship with materials that can commonly be found on Earth. While they experimented, Peter's wristwatch started to beep. "Who's calling?" Richard asked. "Our competitor and good friend," Peter smirked. "Tell Tony I said hi," Richard chuckled. "Strongest Avenger speaking. How can I be of assistance?" "Dude, what do you mean strongest?" "I bet I can take you down a notch," Tony replied with a smirk. "You really want to put that statement to the test?" Peter asked as he pulled up a hologram of Tony. "So why are you calling?" At the same time, a hologram of Peter appeared in Tony's office. "You didn't happen to have a ship around Pluto, do you?" Peter lifted a brow as Tony pulled up his data from the long-range scanning device he built. "I got this about 2 minutes ago, and at its current speed, it'll reach Earth in a few minutes." The image zoomed in on the spacecraft, showing the symbol of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers. "Wait a second. I recognize that ship. Well, I'll be damned. He finally decided to pay us a visit. So, it is one of yours?" "Sure is. Wanna meet some aliens?" "Why, Parker, are you asking me out on a date?" "I will leave you behind," Peter gave a blanched response. No, I was just joking." "How can I turn down this kind of fun?" Tony smirked as he walked over to his Iron Man MRK-39 suit, also known as the Gemini Star Boost suit, "but we're taking the express route. No portals." "Got a new suit you want to test out?" "Yep." Tony suited up. "Dad, I got a thing." Peter looked to his father. "Go on, we're making good progress here," Richard chuckled. "You saying I'm not needed?" Peter showed an exaggerated look of shock. His suit covered his body before he jumped to the nearby windows. He then waved goodbye before blasting off to meet up with Tony. Peter quickly soared over the city until he saw Tony's signal appear on his radar. "Nice suit." Peter pulled up his comms. "Thanks, your whole space venture inspired me to make it." "You saw Johnny's ship, didn't you? And you just had to one-up him." "It's a cool design, but the kid is just so damn cocky," Tony huffed. "Couldn't let sleeping dogs lie?" Iron Man caught up with Peter and flew alongside him as he said, "What kind of role model would I be if I let him show me up like that? You know my Avengers code name." "Okay, Dad. That's father of invention to you, son." The two laughed as they reached orbit and flew all the way to the moon in a matter of seconds. "I'll send out a beacon for them to land on. Why don't you just make a base while we're at it? A moon base would come in handy." "Fine." Peter snapped his fingers and created a massive dome around the size of New York and all the felicities needed for space traversal. "I never get tired of seeing those gems in action. Maybe I can make a set of my own." "Well, you made a new element, so with enough time, anything is possible. How's your alchemy and magic studies coming along?" "I can make portals now and use basic eldritch magic. As for alchemy, I think in a couple of years, I might be able to make a philosopher's stone." Peter snapped his fingers a few more times and created grass, tress, filled in craters with water, and put in UV lights with a screen that showed roaming clouds all along the inner dome surface. "Now you're just showing off," Tony laughed as he looked at the scans his suit was picking up. "Is this place mimicking Earth's gravity and atmosphere?" "Yep, it's safe to breathe." Peter removed his mask and started walking towards the command base he built. Tony followed after and walked inside with stars in his eyes. "Holy crap. This tech is amazing." Peter chuckled as he said, "You haven't seen anything yet." He led him to Command Central and showed off the very Star Trek-like room. "Ooh, can I have the honor?" Tony's smile was as bright as could be. Peter nodded his head. "Be my guest." Tony took his place at the captain's seat and spoke like William Shatner. "Pull up Communications Officer Zuhura." "Don't make me smack you, Tony. You could at least call me Chekhov." Peter shook his head as he tapped away on a keyboard. "Hailing friendly. 18AU/Uranus. Milano Cockpit. Hey, we got an incoming transmission," Gamora spoke up as she tapped on her desk screen. "Pull it up," Peter and Rocket said at the same time. "Would you stop giving orders on my ship?" "Our ship, and since I'm obviously the pilot, I command this floor," Rocket growled. "Oh, we are not having this conversation again. Have you ever considered that you're both the captain?" Drax spoke as if her just offered some wise words. "No," they both spoke in unison. "I am Groot." "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "We're two different people. I got nothing in common with this guy." "Clearly, I'm way smarter," Rocket laughed. "I'm Kirk, he's Spock. I'm Captain, he's co-captain." "Actually, I'm Kirk." Tony's face came up on a large holographic screen. "Hey Peter, how's it going?" Spiderman grinned as he waved at the screen. "Hey, Pete. It's good to see you again." Quill waved back. "I'm glad you feel that way. What brings your back to Earth?" Well, we kind of need your help. What did you do? Peter pinched the bridge of his nose. Rocket here, thought it'd be a good idea to steal from a certain group of people and now their whole species is after us. Hey, I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't get us back our reputation, Gamora snapped at him. They were all a bunch of douchebags, and I only took a few, for studying purposes. What a guy can't further his own education. I am Groot. Whoa, is that language any kind to be spewing around your kid? Quill said while Gamora eyed the sapling dancing not too far away from them. I am Groot. The baby Groot spoke up. See what you did, Groot? Quill sighed. I am Groot, Papa Groot said as he crossed his arms and lifted a brow. He's right, words are just words. You humans have strange ideas. There's no such thing as a bad word when there's no bad intent, Drax nodded his head. He's not wrong, Tony smirked. Ugh, who is this guy? Quill asked with a frustrated expression. Tony Stark, Avenger, billionaire, hero, playboy, philanthropist. Don't know how Pepper would feel about that playboy title. Ex-playboy. Ugh, Stark. That name sounds familiar. You might remember Howard Stark. You were a kid when the Ravagers kidnapped you, and you're about the same age as Tony, so he should have been around. I can't remember. Sorry, Quill showed an apologetic expression. Well, that was humbling. So, you're him, huh, the first human to travel space? Tony questioned. I guess I am, Quill smiled brightly. Oh, he's far from the first, Peter chuckled. What's that supposed to mean? Tony and Quill spoke at the same time. A little history lesson from a long time ago. I tell you some other time, Peter replied as he started tapping away on the computer. I'm sending you the coordinates to the moon base I just built. I'll see you in a few minutes. What? We have a moon base now? That's so cool. Wait until you see Venus and Mars, Tony smirked. Why? What hap? At that very moment, the Milano ceased flight in front of Venus. The once yellow barren planet was now a ball of blue and green with golden-colored clouds. The hell? Quill gasped when the communication line was closed. It looks like the planet underwent terraforming, Gamora commented. I'm guessing those orbital rings played a part in it, but I thought you said your planet was underdeveloped, Rocket looked to Quill. Guys, it's been like 35 years since I was taken from Earth. I am Groot. Yeah, that is pretty fast development for someone of Quill's race, Rocket chuckled. Hey, I'm only half human and quit dissing my race. If you underestimate humans, it'll only bite you on the ass down the line. Despite Quill's lack of intelligence, we shouldn't judge an entire race based on his standard, Drax added. How did you manage to both insult me while praising humans? Quill's eyebrow twitched. All right, let's head to Earth's moon. Rocket jumped back into his seat and started flying towards their destination. Peter and Tony waited at the docking area that shot out a beam of radio waves that would guide the Guardians to their location. Mere minutes later, the spaceship flew in close and was grabbed by a tractor beam. Once they docked, the ship airlock opened up while the hatch stretched out into a bridge that linked up with the walkway. The Guardians of the Galaxy walked out of their ship and smiled at Peter, who waved at them and said, Been a while, guys. How's it going? Yo, Pete. Nice place you got here. Rocket looked around with a curious expression before he climbed onto Peter's shoulder. Don't take anything. If you need something, just let know, and I'll conjure it for you. Peter shook his head. Of course, I'd never steal from my friends. Bullshit. Quill showed an angry expression. Several items in my room and my precious toothbrush beg to differ. I am Groot. Huh? Did you find another Groot? Peter asked as he looked at the baby on Groot's shoulder. No, that plant device you gave us allowed Groot to grow a newborn from one of his branches. Neat. I guess with enough time, the Flora Colossi can be taken off the species endangerment listings. This is incredible. You're actually aliens. Tony inspected them. First time. Quill smirked. Well, you're not the first I've seen them, but it is the first time seeing them so humanoid in shape. Is bipedal evolution that common in the universe? More or less, Peter added as he started walking down the docking station. Come on, I'll give you guys a tour of the place. Should we be wasting time like this? I thought we came here to have the man-spider negotiate for us. Shouldn't we deal with this now rather than later? Drax asked. Do they know of Earth's location? Tony lifted a brow. They know I'm part human, Quill sighed. How bad is it? Peter asked. They're called the Sovereigns, a rather advanced species with thousands of planets and the most advanced gene manipulation technology that we've ever seen, Gamora replied. That interests me a lot since I specialize in the same field of science. Peter grinned as he thought of Adam Warlock, possibly one of the most powerful non-celestials in Marvel history. So, think you can get us out of this jam? Sure, but first we should take care of the guys that have been following you. Peter led them to the control room and pulled up a map of their solar system. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's a real replica of the Enterprise bridge, Quill geeked out. It is pretty cool, Tony added as he sat in the captain's seat. Communications, radar, shields, artificial gravity, this base has it all, Rocket's eyes sparkled. I am Groot. Why does he only say that? Tony asked. I am Groot. His vocabulary is limited to I, am, and Groot, but he's partially telepathic. If you know how to listen, you can understand him, Peter replied. What he said, Rocket started tapping away on some of the control panels. Rocket! Don't touch anything, Quill shouted. I trust him, Peter chuckled. Yeah, Quill, chill out. Rocket pulled up schematics of the base. Who's following us? Gamora lifted a brow. Rocket, can you pull up the visuals? Peter asked as the screen magnified to show two ships rapidly approaching their star system. Them, Peter grinned. Chapter 100, Issue 100, The Amazing Web Part 14. A group of sovereign ships were closing in on their location, while not too far behind a group of what looked like Ravager ships stealthily followed after. Yondu. What's he doing here? Quill clenched his jaw. Tony, hail sword and gather a team of Avengers. If we're going to have issues with the Conclave, we can't show weakness. The Ravagers especially, since they're a group of criminals. Got it. Tony nodded his head as he got out of the captain's seat. Does this thing actually have teleportation modules? Rocket asked as his eyes gleamed through the information on his screen. Yeah, you're kind of slow on the uptake, huh? It only took me a minute to learn everything about this place. Now move over, Rocket, right? Tony started typing next to him. I did it 42nd, and it's Rocket the raccoon. I was curious about that. How'd a raccoon end up in space? You are from Earth, correct? My gene scanner has matched most of your genetic sequences as Earth in origin. Tony looked over the fuzzy creature with a fascinated expression. Don't know, don't care. He and Quill have a lot in common. They were both taken from Earth, Peter replied. Yeah, we figured that out during our last visit, but by who, that's the question he won't answer, Quill spoke up while the rest of the crew gave him curious looks. Rocket clenched his fists. Doesn't matter. I beg to differ, but everyone needs to move at their own pace, Peter patted Rocket on the head. Stop it. The space raccoon swatted Peter's hand away. I am Groot. I do not like the way it feels. Rocket growled. He says that, but when he got drunk a while back. Quill, if you finish that sentence, I'll tell everyone about your search history. I have nothing more to say. That's what I thought. Rocket hopped out of his seat. Come on, Groot, I show you where all the good dirt is. The two walked out of the room while Drax shrugged his shoulders and followed them. The large holographic screen popped up showing Fury on the other side of the call. What's happening now? Fury looked up from his desk. Oh, the usual, a possible alien invasion and new friends. How's the Stellar Sword prep? Fully stocked, fully staffed, and waiting its first mission. Tell Coulson I said hi. Tell him yourself. I'll start on setting up the team. Hey, send the new guy, his quantum tech is perfect for what we need. You planning on snagging more tech? I'd be a fool if I didn't, Tony grinned. Come on, we got work to do. Peter nudged Tony to hurry up. Right, I'll find the perfect place to set up a colony and you build it. Tony started tapping away. What's he doing? Quill asked. Building schematic for a battlefield, Peter grinned. And you'll use your magic to make it? Gamora lifted a brow. That's the plan. How far are they? Peter asked. We popped out a dozen light years away, so it should take them some time to catch up. After all, the Milano is the fastest ship in the universe, Quill smirked with pride. I know, I built its engines, Peter bragged. We have 10 hours before they arrive. Huh? Gamora frowned at the readings she was looking at. What? Tony asked. There's another ship breaching subspace. An egg-like ship shot past all the others and was rapidly approaching their star system. Based on Tony's calculations, it'd arrive within the next 30 minutes. The hell is that? Quill furrowed his brow. A very unwanted guest, Peter frowned. I guess I should pull out the big guns for this one. Tony, how fast can you design that thing? I'll have it finished in less than 10 minutes. Good, I prepare the portal and debrief the team. Peter looked over at the remaining two Guardians of the Galaxy in the room. You two are with me. Right, who's the team? Gamora questioned. You'll be meeting the leader of your affiliate team Sword in a bit, but we're going catch the Avengers up on the situation. Oh, the hero team you talked about last time? I can't wait to meet them. Quill's eyes sparkled. Speaking of teams, where's Nebula? She's back on Nowhere, Gamora spoke up. Really? Why? She had business there before this whole rocket issue popped up. Someone double-booked us. Quill looked at Gamora. My sister can take care of herself. She knows where we are. The Eternity Forge isn't something we can overlook. If Thanos' men are searching for it, we need to find it first. Hold up, did you say Eternity Forge? Peter's eyes widened. Yeah, you know about it? Not really, but it was rumored to have been created by the personification of Eternity itself. If that's true, it's an item that can rival the power of the Infinity Stones. I take it that's bad, Quill cringed as he looked at Gamora. If Thanos gets his hands on it, Peter nodded his head. Right, Maybe we should have focused on the forge. No, neither of us were wrong, Quill. Gathering allies to aid in our fight against Thanos is just as important. Gamora showed a frustrated expression. Are you two dating? Peter grinned. What? Both Gamora and Quill looked at him with surprised expressions. You sound like a couple that had an argument recently. Well, we did have a little fight. I don't recall trying to hit you. Gamora made Peter laugh. That's not funny. Quill's eyebrow twitched. He wasn't being literal. Spider-Man forced himself to hold in his giggles. I know, I just do that to annoy him. Gamora grinned. Peter lifted a brow and said, You also didn't answer my question. Things are complicated. Gamora shook her head. I think we're dating, she's still unsure, Quill mumbled. Can we not do this now? Fine, looks like we're here anyways. Quill rolled his eyes. Peter opened a large hatch door leading to a large circular ring on a platform. I have the open the line up with Avengers Tower, so it'll take me a few minutes. Can you two behave? Yeah, not a peep. Quill raised his hands as he leaned against the wall. I didn't say don't talk, just don't throw any punches, he joked as he walked over to the computer and started tapping away. Folding space requires a lot of sequences and calculations. Can't have you breaking my equipment. Right. Gamora sat next to Quill. Just as promised, 3 minutes later, the portal was opened, and people started walking through. The team Fury sent was MJ, Captain America, Magneto, Charles Xavier, Ant-Man, Wasp, Hulk, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch. Hey honey, MJ gave him a kiss on the cheek before spotting Gamora and Quill. What's up guys? Sir, Steve gave a salute. Steve, that's not necessary. We're both council members. Still, you've done a lot for Earth, and let's face it, you're the unofficial leader of this whole band. Steve patted his shoulder. Still not a soldier, Steve? Peter shook his head. Don't have to be one to get my respect, Steve replied. Oh wow, you're him, Ant-Man spoke up as he held out his hand. Scott Lang, nice to meet ya. My daughter's a big fan. Can we get a couple of autographs? For my kid, of course. Ant-Man, Wasp, glad you two finally decided on joining. Peter shook their hands. I'll see what I can do about those autographs. He turned to Eric and Charles. Glad you two could join us. Your powers will be the most helpful. You say that as if you don't have our powers already at your disposal, Magneto smirked. I'm sure you could easily solve this issue without us considering your power. Yeah, but it's good practice for everyone. I can't always be around to deal with this stuff. Peter looked to Wanda. Do you have your powers under control? Master said it was safe for me to return to duty. Wanda grinned as she showed off her chaotic magic circle. How's the power-up treating you, Speedster? Faster than ever, boss, Pietro replied. Holy crap, it's the real Captain America. The first hero. I collected all your comics and toys when I was a kid. Quill held his hand out to one of his idols. Always nice to meet a fan. Steve nodded his head and shook. So, who are you? I'm Star-Lord. Peter Quill, born and raised Missouri, space traveler, treasure hunter, mercenary, soldier, we have a lot in common. I'm basically you but in space. Really, I'm sure you have plenty of stories to share. Steve looked over at MJ who was chatting away with Gamora. Alright then, time is limited, so I'll fill you in on the situation. Peter started speaking as he pulled up the hologram of their plans. In a few minutes, some guest will arrive, and I want you all to act normal, as if nothing can surprise you. I'll explain about him at a later date, but we need to focus on the attack force coming towards our star system. Aliens have known of Earth for some time now, but none of them know how advanced we've come in just a few years, so we need to send a message to everyone out in the galaxy. Don't mess with humans. What exactly are we doing? Steve asked. A warning shot, try negotiation, and if all else fails, as Peter spoke, a massive ship floating above the lunar base suddenly came into view. We defend our planet with lethal force. The ship Stellar Sword was a warship Tony, Peter, and MJ developed together for future space encounters. With a combination of Skrull, Kree, and Chitauri technology, this lone ship could stand up to an armada of Thanos forces. It was larger than a city and carried weapons that could destroy almost any force Peter could imagine. Even glassing a planet was possible should Peter remove its restrictions. Sir, this the captain of the Stellar Sword. Docking will commence in 2 minutes. Good to hear your voice again, Coulson, Peter smiled. Glad to be heard, Coulson replied with a smile on his face. Holy crap, Quill gasped as he stared out the window. You guys weren't the only ones preparing for Thanos. Spider-Man suited up as he walked towards the bridge. Where are we going? MJ walked beside him. To the command center and then to a new base at the edge of our solar system, Peter said as he started walking alongside the Avengers. And I thought the moon base was impressive enough already, Steve said seconds before Tony's voice echoed out over the comms. Peter, we have neighbors that want to talk to you. Neighbors? Oh crap, I forgot that Bolt moved his kingdom here. I'll take care of it, MJ winked. I have some pull with the royal family. Glad to hear. The group showed a confused expression before Peter said, there is a group of early metahumans that existed a long time ago. They've been in hiding much in the same way Wakanda has. They made a decision to move to the moon some time ago. Ooh, that makes sense, Scott nodded his head before whispering to Janet. I didn't get any of that. Are you saying there were ancient mutants? How far back are we speaking? Charles questioned with great interest. A long time ago, a species of godlike beings came to Earth and messed with our genetic coding because they were interested in our potential. The first of the mutants to develop powers were born in roughly around the Stone Age. Possibly even earlier. Ah, so that's what you mean by Quill not being the first to go into space, Tony's voice echoed on the comms system. That's right, Tony. Some were taken for further research, others developed their powers to move to new planets, and the rest stayed on Earth. Well, that's a bummer, Quill huffed. So much for my achievement of first human in deep space. Relax, it's still a worthy title for you, Peter placed his hand on his shoulder. After all, you're the first hybrid to be born on Earth. In fact, there are many aliens out there that share common ancestry with us, but you're the first to be born on Earth. To think our people had such history. So, we owe our powers to these beings? Magneto questioned. No, they just sped things up a bit. The X gene has always been dormant within our species, Peter answered. Who were these godlike beings? Celestials, Eternals. They have a few different names. However, we shouldn't get involved with them yet. How many DC fans are there in the crowd? I read them. Superman is my favorite, Scott spoke up. Well, the Eternals basically have their own Superman. The crowd went silent. That's crazy, Pedro spoke up. What's a Superman? Wanda asked. You're kidding, right? Tony's voice became clear as they walked into the central control room. Imagine a god. Now imagine that there's an alien who can beat up gods and you have Superman, Scott informed. And they see as threats? Charles lifted a brow. That is frightening to think about, Wanda admitted. You're telling me, and oh, most Eternals see us as threats to the universe, so my advice is to tread carefully should you ever encounter one. Depending on how you act, it will either result in them declaring a purge of our race or whether we can deal with this through peaceful means. We'll keep that in mind, Tony said as he pointed to the schematics of the new ring world he designed. Good work, Tony, Peter stated as he began to memorize all the data in front of him. Defenses look good. Weaponry should be more than enough to get our point across, MJ said as she looked through the blueprints. Yo, Red, Rocket announced his presence as he strolled into the room. Rocket, you look healthy, MJ hopped over and scratched behind his ears. Would you all stop that? Rocket pushed her hands away and jumped on top of Peter's shoulders. Is that a talking raccoon? Scott asked while the others showed shocked expressions. You got a problem with that? I am Groot, the giant tree man walked into the room. I am not being mean. I am Groot. I said I'm not. A talking tree? Janet showed a look of fascination. Guardians of the Galaxy, meet a portion of the Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes. We're down one right now, but she should join us in a few days. Drax stood next to his crew and crossed his arms. With the exception of the green one, you don't look too tough to me. I think the man-spider has spoken overrated praises. Hey Drax, wanna find out just how strong they are? MJ's clenched her fists and hit him on the side of the head. I do. Why did you hit me? What you just said was kind of offensive, man. Besides, you should never judge someone's strength on appearance alone. Peter shook his head. I see, I was being dicky. Cocky, the word is cocky. Star-Lord face palmed with an annoyed expression. Alright, enough of that. MJ, let's get started. Peter opened a portal in front of everyone and started creating the materials needed to build their latest base. Spider-Woman stood by his side and used her technokinesis to create the massive structure that was mankind's first artificial living space. Tony started to hum the Halo theme as the structure started to take shape. Peter conjured land, water, plants, and buildings all in mere minutes before a complete ring world appeared in the empty vacuum of space. Incredible. Those who hadn't seen Peter and MJ's powers gasped in awe. I feel like a kid again, Tony smirked as he put his suit on and flew through the portal. Peter rolled his eyes and closed the portal before opening another on the land. Come on, time is limited. The group looked at each other and nodded their heads before hopping through the portal. Chapter 101, Issue 101, The Amazing Web Part 15. When they appeared on the other side, everyone was in awe of the view surrounding them. They could see the buildings on the opposite side of the ring, the plains that stretched out hundreds of miles, the pure water oceans, and even artificial clouds. This has to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen, Scott spoke up. Well, don't get too comfortable. We have a message to send, Peter said as Tony came flying in. This place is the best. You have to make me one. Make me one, please. Make it yourself, Peter replied while he looked out into the vastness of space. Looks like the fastest one got here first. The massive egg-shaped ship suddenly slowed down in front of the massive ring before Peter activated the new satellite that projected a massive image of him. Warning. You have entered the border of the Sol System star. Further encroachment will result in lethal force if you do not dock at the nearest satellite and register your purpose for arrival. You must submit to a background investigation, and if everything checks out, you will be allowed to pass. The egg spaceship seemed to agree to the demands and started to approach a large landmass within the ring. Peter and the Avengers all made their way over and took in the sights. Before they arrived, the stellar sword appeared from a warp gate and docked directly in the center of the ring. They stopped at the strange white ship before it opened up and revealed two aliens walking out with their hands up. Sorry for the intrusion. A ruggedly good-looking man with a brown beard slowly got closer to the group. He was wearing a red and mostly black suit that looked militaristic in origin. My name is Jason Spartax. I come in peace. My reasons for being here is to look for my son. The person beside him was a young pale green woman with two antennae at the sides of her forehead. She had bright-looking wide eyes, a small nose, and blue-colored lips. She wore a black sleeveless vest, tight black leggings, and what looked like army boots. I am Mantis, Jason's escort and medical officer. My name is Peter Parker, and... So. Jason shouted as he looked at his kid. Quill looked around while everyone stared at him. What? He's not talking about me. The father walked over and hugged Peter Quill while laughing. You look just like me. You even have your mother's eyes. Tell me, how's Meredith doing? Quill shoved him away as he said, she's dead. Died of cancer a while back, and no one but my uncle was there to look after her. I don't suppose you would, seeing as how you abandoned us. Jason looked genuinely hurt as he looked away and said, No, that can't be. My little star is gone. Maybe not the best time for this, Peter coughed into his hand. If you'll wait here for a moment, I have some issues to deal with. No, that's fine. I'll be inside my ship. We'd prefer you stay outside. At least until we deal with docking everyone else. Iron Man stopped him before hundreds of smaller ships came flying into view. The message replayed, warning them to dock, but some tried to arm warheads. Fire the warning shot, Peter gave the command. The massive ship in the center of the ring lit up and hummed with energy before a large dish appeared at the front. A simple press of the switch triggered a massive wave of radio waves that not only disabled the weapons but completely shut down their ships. That was your one and only warning shot. The next will be with lethal weapons. Comply or face the edge of the sword. Once the sovereign species regained control of their ships, they played it safe and docked one by one. Tony looked at Ant-Man and said, You can shrink, right? That's my thing. Why? Scott replied, I want you to sneak on the ship and take pictures of everything. I'll pay too. How much? Scott lifted a brow. 100K for every picture, 5 mil if you get me a complete schematic. Oh, and I'm not buying duplicates. Right, well if you just excuse me. Scott moved out of sight before shrinking down to sneak on board of the golden-colored spaceships. Peter walked over with Rocket and waited for one to get out. While he stood there, Rocket continued to complain, Don't see why I have to do this. You know why. But you don't get it, Pete. These guys suuuck. I will make copies of the batteries for you after they leave. Until then, you have to say sorry. Spiderman shook his head. Ugh, are you sure there isn't some other way to resolve this? I mean, they're all out of their ships. We could, light 'em up. I have a few bombs I could put to good use. Would you stop? We're not blowing them up. Suck it, buddy. You came to me for help. This is how I'm going to help. Peter crossed his arms and stared at the trash panda with a serious expression. But, look, if they don't take the apology and demand your arrest, I'll stand by you. Even if the whole sovereign species threatens me, I'll be here for you, even if I have to fight every last one of them. Rocket lowered his head. Fine, I'll bluff. Finally, one of the pilots opened up their ship and walked out with a wrist device that displayed an image of their leader. The golden skin woman looked at Peter and lifted a brow. I was not aware of that Terran apes had become so advanced. I am the leader of the sovereigns, High Priestess Aisha. We go by Earthlings. I am the leader of this strike force, and the tech isn't anything to be too surprised about. Peter held his hands out. Now, what brings you to my part of the galaxy? You are harboring criminals that stole from us. The High Priestess looked at Rocket. Rocket, return the nice lady's things. Fine. Rocket tossed over the batteries. Don't see why you're so stingy. I only took a couple. The soldier caught them and fumbled, keeping them all in his hand. Is that all of them? Peter lifted a brow. Grr, no. Rocket tossed over the last two and said, I hate this. Now what do you say? Peter nudged his shoulder. Really? I gave them their stuff back. Rocket. Fine. I'm sorry. As you should be, Aisha said while her soldier struggled to stabilize her image. But you will be brought back and dealt with on our terms. If you would please hand the animal over. I'm afraid I can't do that. As upsetting as it is for you, Rocket is of Earthling origin. He is a citizen of our cradle planet. I cannot hand him over to be killed by another race. So, either you take your stolen goods and fuck off, or we do this the violent way. The priestess was about to complain, but Peter held his hand up. Before you say, you're outnumbered, we have the advantage, yada, yada, blah blah blah. Just know that if I wanted, I could atomize every last member of your race right here, right now. Countless guns and turrets appeared from the bottom of the stellar sword. Are willing to go to war over that? Rodent? Lady, I would burn a planet to ash for one of my own, even if he has issues with stealing stuff that he doesn't need. Rocket cringed, lowering his shoulders as he looked away. This won't bode well for you. Our numbers are not something that can be overlooked. You're a planet that has just joined the stars while we are hundreds of trillions in number. War is not a wise choice. You say that, but you have no idea what we're capable of. Rather than take the risk on war, how about we come to a compromise? Peter raised his finger. What could you possibly offer? Money. Peter held up a card that still had all of the collector's wealth. It was a little over 1.5 trillion, so he was sure that he could easily pay off any fines. I'll pay the cost of any damages and fines you have for his theft. The priestess pondered over the idea for a second. Very well. It will cost 10 billion credits to repair everything and another 15 million for the rodent's transgressions. Peter didn't know if he was being ripped off, but he wasn't about to back down. Very well. He walked over to the soldier who scrambled to put the batteries inside his ship and approached Peter with a device. He slid his card through it and smiled as he said, So we're done here, correct? Once Aisha acquired the funds, she nodded her head and said, Yes, very well. However, this act does not paint you favorably. Should any of your kind ever be in our quadrant, just know that you will not be welcomed. Oh boo-hoo, I'm shaking in my boots. Peter rolled his eyes as he looked to the rest of the group. All right, you can leave now. Get out of here. The men all boarded their ships and started flying away before Ant-Man suddenly popped up to regular height and stared at Peter. Couldn't you have kept them busy for a few more minutes? Really? Peter lifted a brow. What did you get? Tony asked. About 30 photos of their engine and 5 of their weapons. Scott held out a flash drive. Tony injected into a port in his suit and looked at the images. Pretty good work. I'll send you the cash. About 10 of the engine pics are useful and all 5 the weapons I can use. 1.5 million isn't a bad payday. It could have been so much more. Scott lowered his head as he gave Tony his credit card. You're not going to rip me off or anything, are you? Tony's expression basically said, Really, dude? Sorry, I have issues with some powerful people that have too much money. One of them sent me to prison because I blew their scheme out of ripping off people. What company did you work for? Roxanne, Scott sighed. Tony's eyebrow twitched. You don't say. Oh, Peter thought as he looked at the two. Say, clue me in on what you discovered. I would love to help you out. Maybe even clear you name. You'd do that? Scott went wide-eyed. Sure. I'm not a big fan of that company either. Well, Roxanne, I guess your days are numbered now. Peter shook his head and chuckled. Once he had dealt with the Sovereigns, Peter walked back over to see the Guardians of the Galaxy chatting about Quill's father. Do you think he's really your dad? Drax questioned. The odds of someone knowing my mom's name. Yeah, he probably is. Why do you think he showed up now? Gamora asked. Probably wants something from ya, Rocket said as he hopped off Peter's shoulders and jumped back on Groot's. I am Groot. Yeah, it's settled. Let's talk about Quill instead. I mean his dad showed up. The fuzzy raccoon tried to change the subject. I am Groot. I'm not deflecting. Peter looked to Quill and smiled. So they won't bother you as long as you don't mess up again. However, I wouldn't expect to get any jobs from that region anytime soon. Right, well we're better off without jobs from a bunch of stuck-up prunes like them. Rocket crossed his arms. Rocket, we need to talk about this. No, we don't. We need to focus on Quill's father. Hi, Jason said as he stepped into the conversation. What do you want? Quill frowned. Look, I know you don't think of me much. But you have to know I wanted to come back. I really did. But, look, just come with me. I'll explain everything. Peter lifted a brow and had Webster scan his father. He was fully expecting to see the readings of a celestial. However, The readings came back as something that made him tilt his head in confusion. Odd. Really odd. It's like the celestial genome has been grafted into him. Underneath it, the structure is completely Spartax. Peter couldn't make heads or tails of the situation, but he was curious to see where it led. Look, if you come with me, I can explain everything. I can show why I was gone for so long. You can even bring your friends, Jason announced as he looked at the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm down to see another planet or two. Tony popped over with an interested expression. Of course you are, Steve chuckled. So did we come out here for nothing? Eric asked while crossing his arms. No, your backup was most certainly necessary. We still have those guys to deal with, Peter pointed at the Ravagers' ship. Ravagers? Nasty group. I hear they eat people. You want my help? Jason offered. No, Peter answered with a dull tone. The newest group to arrive at the ring was given the same warning as those that came before them, and just as Peter thought it would happen, they refused to disarm and tried to attack. Dozens of attack ships came out of their mothership and started to try and approach, but a simple radio burst was enough to hack into their systems and shut them all down. You're going to help me arrest every last one of these guys and confiscate everything, Peter said as he looked at the Avengers. Okay, I guess that makes sense. I'll take care of the big one, Magneto declared as he raised his hand and started pulling over the flagship. Peter then looked at the Guardians and said, Well, you ready to pay me back for bailing you out? Sure. Jason, just stay here until we finish. We'll hear you out later. Quill pressed his chest and made his mask appear. I feel like punching something anyways. Gamora looked a bit worried but sighed and stood by Quill. Finally, can we stop standing around? Rocket grabbed his multi-gun. Tony, take care of the stragglers. We'll deal with the flagship. Got it. Tony took off and started grabbing the fighter ships before bringing them back to knock out the pilots. Once Magneto moved the flagship close enough, Quill invited everyone aboard the Milano. However, Peter just opened a portal and said, My way is quicker. Come on, let's beat up some pirates, Rocket cheered as he hopped through. Hey Rocket, Peter threw the raccoon a gift. What's this? Rocket asked as he grabbed hold of the vial of glowing liquid. I cloned the battery. I left a trunk in the Milano. Rocket grinned. Cool. You spoil him, Gamora said as she jumped through the portal. I like the little kleptomaniac, Sumi. Let's go. MJ cheered as she hopped through. The others joined in and hopped into a very confused crew of Ravagers. Avengers, take him down, MJ shouted as she jumped into the battle. The enemies raised their weapons and fired into the crowd. Chapter 102, Issue 102, The Amazing Web Part 16. Peter and MJ dodged and weaved between the laser fire and started to take out their opponents with ease. Rocket shot back while Wasp and Ant-Man shrank down and flew into battle. Magneto used his abilities to crush their weapons while Charles would use his telekinesis to restrain them and put them to sleep. Flicks of silver blurs would appear while men were flung in different directions before blasts of red chaotic energy would slam men into the wall. Men, hold your position. Taserface demands it. Huh. Did you hear that name, Quill? What a stupid name. Rocket said as he shot a guy dead in the chest. Quill blasted some men with ice and fire as he cracked a smile. And you said my naming sense is bad. I mean, Rocket dodged a guy trying to tackle him and hopped of his head while shooting dozen of more men. Who names themselves that? What did he just wake up one day, look in the mirror, and decide today I'm gonna make people call me Taz? Fahahaha, Taserface. Ahahaha. I am Groot. Groot drew people in and knocked them out with powerful punches. Gamora jumped past a man with giant rocket-propelled weapon and threw him into another guy before grabbing the weapon and firing down a corridor. Once it exploded, dozens of men came out of Hall, all of them on fire. MJ splashed them with water then electrocuted them before Peter dodged another laser and punched a guy so hard that his whole body was imprinted into the metal interior of the ship. So, which one of you is Taserface? Peter smirked as he looked at the alien in question. The one calling himself as such looked around and said, Peter hit him in the face with some taser webbing and said, You have poor taste in names. Ahahaha. Did you just taste Taserface in the face? That was classic. Rocket kicked a space pirate in the gut before he looked down at him with a smile. What do you want from me, furry demon? Hey, I kind of like that. Give me that eye. Rocket grinned as he caught the Ravager in question shaking in his boots. Please don't kill me. He held out the eye while shaking like a grass during a windstorm. Relax. We haven't killed anyone, yet. The man quivered even more before Rocket leaned close to him and said, Boo. After he passed out, Groot came up and said his usual 3 lines. What? That was funny. This is weird, Quill commented as he noticed that enemies were all easily being taken care of. What? Drax asked as he picked a guy up and tossed him onto the ground. Yondu isn't here. This is his crew, but I don't see him in sight at all. That's because he was taken captive. Kraglin Obfontery spoke up as he peeked around the corner. Was a coup, you see? Coup, there was a coup. Peter sighed as he webbed another guy to the wall while tilting his head to avoid the laser. Ha! Ha 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 ha. Quill started laughing as he walked over towards Kraglin and said, "Take me to him." Right. While the Avengers cleared out the ship and made sure they didn't miss anything, Peter and MJ walked alongside Guardians of the Galaxy until they ended up at the brig. Seeing the small cell Yondu was stuck in, Quill smirked as placed his head against the bars as he said, "Well, looks like consequence finally bit you in the ass." "What, Quill? What are you doing here, boy? Really, you were chasing us, don't play dumb." "Do I look like I'm in any condition to chase after you? My men betrayed me, wanted that bounty the Sovereigns put on ya. Not to mention that fast ship of yours. You had a lot of people looking for who made it. My men wanted it for themselves. I was against it." Yondu eyed his first mate. "So, they planned a mutiny. I swear, Cap, I wasn't part of that." "Sure you weren't. Where's my control device?" "I'll get it for you." "No you won't," Quill barked. "Why not? Seeing as you're here, I know you already captured my ship. All my men betrayed me, and I can go ahead forget about getting back any funds I carried with me, so whatcha afraid of? Not much I can do to ya. Did you forget? I was 12 maybe 11. You once locked me up in here because I tried to get back home." "And? Really? That's all you can say?" 20 years, Yondu. 20 years you kept me against my will. Now I finally get to see the man that kidnapped me in the similar position. It's very cathartic." "Hi," Peter interrupted while he waved his hand. "Who are you?" Yondu questioned. "The guy who made his ship. Also, the same guy who will be confiscating your flagship." Peter looked around at the cramped space. "Hey, wanna tell me why you took Quill from Earth? I could let you out and give you a ship to get back to." "Well, I guess you don't have a place to go back to." "Guess you didn't hear. His daddy is some big-time emperor. Figured I could earn a few bucks by ransoming him. Deal fell through and I took a liking to the brat and let him stick around. I figured it was better putting him back on that rock and taught him everything he knows. Fat lot that did me. Raised him like my own and he stabs me in the back first chance he gets." "Raise me? You starved me, beat me, worked me to the bone, and threatened to let your crew eat me." "That last bit was a joke. Everything else was just me helping you build character." "I was a kid." "Wait, back up, he's an emperor." Quill's eyes bulged. "Yeah, you could have been a big payday, but dear old daddy wanted nothing to do with him." "It's strange you say that, Yondu, because his daddy's just outside this ship, and according to him, he's been looking for a way back to Quill for a long time." "He's here." Yondu's eyes widened before he jumped up at the railing. "Quill, you can't go with him. Whatever you do, you have to stay away from that man." "Why the hell should I listen to you? You don't understand, you can't. That man is a monster, Quill. Taking his job was the worst decision of my life." Yondu squeezed his hands around the bars of the cell. "Quill, I was supposed to take you to him along with your mommy. It was supposed to be a simple pickup and delivery, but I waited too long. Eventually, when I finally got around to it, the orders changed. He had me bringing kids to him from other places, almost like he was avoiding you. I thought nothing of it, but those kids never came back. I broke the code of the Ravagers, never take jobs with kids involved." "Wait, space pirate code? Don't mess with children?" "I never thought I'd say I have some respect for a bunch of criminals," MJ commented. "The Ravagers ain't criminals. Not when we first started out anyways. We were mercenaries that took the more dangerous jobs. Traffic materials or people through heavily guarded sections of space, got armies what they needed to escape or fight back against the Kree. We were insurgents. It wasn't until we were betrayed that we became pirates. Even then, our goals remained the same. We don't pirate from just anybody. We got a strict code of ethics too." "If that's true, then why did you go through with the jobs?" Quill asked with a sickened expression. I was in a bad place. I thought it harmless, an easy job, just ferry some kids to another planet. A man of your father's stature wouldn't do anything that would ruin his reputation, and the money was too good to pass up. I didn't know what would happen." Peter was very confused. His identity of an emperor didn't match up with movie canon, but the story was the same. At least certain parts of it is a combination of the movie and comic lore. "There's something weird about that planet. My men didn't come back after finding the bodies." Quill frowned. "What do you mean bodies?" "It was the kids. It's why I took you, boy. If I didn't, he'd just hire someone else that would. I couldn't take it. The blood is on my hands, and I didn't want any more." MJ clenched her fists. She couldn't imagine the guy they just met killing children. She wanted nothing more than to strangle him, but she didn't know if Yondu was lying to save his own skin. "We have no way of knowing if this isn't some lie." Spider-Woman crossed her arms. "I guess we'll have to go with him to figure out the truth," Peter said as he leaned against the wall. "You can't. I just told that planet is weird. Something about it. It changes the people who go on it. Take me to the helm. I'll show y'all my men's footage. How can we be sure that this isn't some trick?" Gamora asked. "I swear on my honor as a Ravager," I got proof. Peter opted to let the guy out as he hit the release switch and said, "Well, show me your evidence." "Thank you." Yondu walked out before his first mate handed over his control comb. "I save it for ya, boss." Yondu put it back on his head and whistled. His arrow shot through the wall and hovered above his head before he grabbed it and stashed it away in his coat. "Well, move." Quill crossed his arms while tapping his foot. Rocket poked him in the back with his multigun. "This thing has 20 different settings, and if you try anything funny, I make sure you live long enough to see all of them." "Right then, follow me." The group did but kept their guard up. Eventually, they ended up on the bridge before Yondu looked around. I can't access the ship's logs." "I'll fix that." "Webster, return power to the computers please." Peter held his hand out. The screen popped on before Yondu started typing into the console. While he looked for the file, Quill noticed the troll bobblehead near the window. "I thought you said you threw this away." "I did, that's where it landed." Yondu deflected as he turned his head and said, "I found it." The screen popped up and showed Yondu slipping a tracker on the kids before looking at the camera. "The moment he leaves, you find that beacon." Yondu gave the order. "You got it, boss," the Ravager called out. "Good, now get to work." "Do I have to go?" The voice of a girl called out. "Yeah, little lady, I was told your father is down there. You finally get to meet him." The camera revealed a girl with purple skin and dark black hair. "Will I really meet my daddy?" "I gave him my word," Yondu said to hurry things up. They then watched the girl board a ship and travel to what Peter knew as the living planet Ego. However, in the movies, they made Ego a celestial. He wasn't sure anymore if this was the same in his universe. If they were a fusion of both, then they might have some issues with going there. Comic Ego had a bunch of abilities that movie Ego didn't show. Comic Ego was busted. He was capable of creating life, recreating landscapes with the exact properties of a place like Asgard, controlling gravity, shapeshifting, and the ability to devour other worlds. He was on par with a being like Galactus, add celestial blood into the mix, and even Peter was unsure if he was a match for the being. The video footage showed the exchange with Jason and the child before the Ravagers left and went into hiding. It went dark before Yondu pulled up another video. This was taken 8 months later. His men had waited for Ego to leave the planet, and when he finally did, they re-entered the planet. The men tracked the location to a blocked-off cavern, and went inside to see the pile of bones with the body of the girl they left on top mostly decayed. Yondu clenched his fist as he looked away from the screen. However, his on-screen voice came through loud and clear. "Get out of there, boys. Get back to the ship." "I don't want to," the Ravager said as he dropped his weapon and started walking off. "The hell are you doing?" "Oh, Yondu, this wasn't part of the deal," the voice of Jason echoed in the room. A strange creature that looked like it was partially made of glowing liquid appeared from the wall. It had a single glowing eye, no face, and a hexagonal-shaped head. The strange creature walked up to the camera and spoke with a command and authority that caused Yondu to shiver. "I tried to settle this in a way that benefits us both, but now I have no choice but to use coercion. There's no hiding it anymore, so why don't you finish your jobs that I paid you oh so much for? What in God's name makes you think I'll do anything you want? And give me back my men?" "No, they belong to me now, and if you don't want your Ravager buddies to figure out you've been trafficking kids, you'll do as I say." There was a sudden silence in the video feed. "You know what? Do it. Don't ever contact me again. If I see you, the first thing I'll do is run my arrow through your skull." "Oh, do you think I'm bluffing?" Ego tilted his creation's strange head. "Don't care, they'll understand. They have to," Yondu lied to himself as he shut off the communications. The screen went dark as everyone had the same grim expression on their faces. As you can imagine, they didn't understand. "I was kicked out, and the first thing I did was go to Terra so I could save you." "The hell was that thing?" Peter frowned and pulled up his trusty search bar. He looked for the planet Ego's history and became quite annoyed. During the first days of creation, a great war enveloped the universe between two types of celestials, those on the side of creation and order, and the corrupted. Eventually, the head of a dead celestial was semi-revived by merging with the living planet. The ancient godlike being's head fell to Ego roughly 1 trillion years ago. Slowly the planet devoured the head and the celestial, and the combined consciousness of the two formed into the planet known as Ego. Several hundred years after gaining consciousness, a visitor landed on his surface to check the damages his ship had suffered through in a fierce battle with the Badoon. The visitor was the very same Jason that had just recently become an emperor after the assassination of his parents. While he was stranded on the living planet until he could repair his ship, he was infected with spores. Ego had grown to try and understand the humanoid creature that was now walking on him. A couple years passed, and with enough time, he eventually made it off of Ego, but he hadn't completely fixed his ship and it broke down on his way back to Spartax. He crash-landed on Earth, met Meredith, and left to help his people finish the war. However, the closer he got to Ego, the more sentient the spores from the planet became, and in the end, it made its way into Jason's brain and started to whisper things to him. Eventually, The Emperor found himself under the control of Ego, and back on that planet he was stranded on all those years ago. His genes altered, manipulated into making a better host body, and after much discussion, the two came to an agreement. Jason would help Ego with whatever plan he had. In turn, Ego would help his empire win the war and run it with him. However, Jason hadn't realized what it was that Ego wanted. The years passed as they shared a body. When Ego slept, Jason was in charge. However, when Jason slept, Ego would further his plans to spread himself out amongst the cosmos. During that time, he sired many children, Mantis included, and as promised the Spartax Empire not only won the war but grew to be one of the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. However, when Jason became aware of what Ego was doing, he tried to end their relationship. Ego didn't like that very much and showed Jason just how little control he had over his life anymore. Should he ever try to renege on their deal, he would not take complete control of the body, but he would destroy every last planet the Spartax had inhabited. This could be an issue, Peter rubbed his chin. Chapter 103, Issue 103, The Amazing Web Part 17. The spider hero shared what he learned with the others and got the same shock and awe that he expected. They all seemed to understand just how serious the situation was, but Quill was freaking out. So, you're telling me my father is some kind of ancient god alien hybrid who has been body-jacked by a living planet? More or less, Peter waved his hand side to side. Man, and I thought Gamera's parent issues were bad, Rocket commented. This sucks, this royally sucks, and apparently, I can say that because I happen to be royal. Go figure. Oh, and apparently, I had a bunch of siblings that were all eaten by my dad, not dad. Star-Lord strutted around while throwing his hands here and there. We don't know that they were eaten, Drax commented. If he's the planet, and all those things rot, then I'm counting it as being eaten, Rocket added. Guys, you're talking about Quills. Gamora paused as she saw the pained look on his face. I am Groot. Groot let out a sad sigh as he patted Quill. Yeah, sorry Quill. I'll let you win a race next time we decide who gets to be the pilot. Rocket looked rather ashamed for some reason. I wasn't expecting a story like that. Yondu looked away. Hey, at least that Mantis girl is still alive. Doesn't that mean you still got family? MJ commented. Peter sighed before saying, yeah. Quill? Not to make matters worse, but I think you should know. Ego had to make the children orphans so Yondu would take the job. Everyone in the room froze as Quill looked Peter dead in the eye. What are you saying, Pete? Yondu, do you happen to know what happened to the mothers of these children died from? Yeah, it was something like a tumor. A brain tumor. That's what it was. It's what let me catch on to that thing's lies. It's an easily enough treatable condition on most planets if you catch it on time. Quill's vision suddenly turned dark as he reached for his gun and started to leave the bridge. Peter stepped in front of him and stopped Star-Lord. Hold on. Don't forget your dad is pretty much a prisoner in his own body. He killed my mom, Pete. Ego killed your mom. Jason probably doesn't even know about it. I need to kill him, Peter. Tell him how to kill him. I might have a way, but even I'm not sure if it'll work. Just give me a few hours, Quill. I need just a couple. I huf I arg. Quill punched the nearby seat and sent it flying across the room. Hey, don't take it out on my ship. Not your ship anymore, dumbass, Rocket said as he walked over to Quill and sat on his shoulder. Groot gave Quill a hug before pulling Drax and Gamora over to join. I am Groot. We are Groot. Yeah, thanks, Groot. I'm sad too. Quill covered his face with his hands. Spider-Woman looked to her husband and asked, what are we going to do now? Something. Something stupid? MJ lifted a brow. Something dangerous? Tony's voice came over their comms. Something stupidly dangerous, Peter sighed as he walked out to inform the other Avengers of what was going to happen. Have you been listening in this whole time? MJ asked. Yeah, sad story. What do we do with Daddy Dearest? Tony asked. Oh, I got something to buy us sometime. Luckily, Ego is really far away. It should take him time to realize what's happening, Peter spoke up. Tony, use the stasis field to lock him up. This thing has a stasis field? Tony exclaimed with an excited expression. Webster, give him temporary access over the ring's weapon systems, Peter spoke as he marched through the Ravager ship and stepped out onto the docking platform. Holy shit. Tony cursed as he looked at everything the ring could do. I didn't add any of this. Yeah, I may or may not have added a few things. Wait until I give the order, Peter said as he made his way back to the entrance. Quill, you stay here. MJ stopped him from leaving. Why? Because your expression is written all over your face, Gamora sighed. We'll stay back with ya, Quill. Rocket leaned against the wall. I am Groot. I want to see what's going to happen. Drax left the group. Really have to work on that guy's sensitivity issues. MJ shook her head. Peter met up with Jason and stood across from before saying, sorry about the wait. No, it's no trouble. So about leaving with my son. Actually, Quill had some issues to work out with the Ravagers. So, he'll be a while longer. Until then, care to eat some Earth food? Peter looked at Mantis walking out of the ship. No, I'm fine. Mantis, can you help me with something? Jason looked to her before she nodded back at him. They started making their way back to their ship when Peter teleported Mantis away and gave Tony the signal. A massive set of what looked like laser cannons popped up around the ship the moment Jason stepped inside it. They fired an invisible beam that suddenly slowed the time around the area to a crawl. Mantis looked worried as she shouted, "You must stop. Without me, he will not be able to rest." He's fine. So I assume you somehow are able to let his sleep without letting Jason take over, right? Ego the one in control right now, correct? The green alien woman gasped. How did you know? What do you sense from me right now, Mantis? Confidence unlike anything I've ever sensed, and worry. Peter smiled and turned to the confused future guardian of the galaxy member and said, "You're safe now. He's frozen in time, so he doesn't need to sleep, and when I finish killing Ego, I'll find a way to save your father." You can do that? I can, with my friends backing me up. Now, go spend some time with your brother. Get to know him. Peter walked towards Tony. What now? Tony asked. Now I go to forge something. But to do that, I have to sort of time travel. Just saying that grosses me out. You're going to travel time? And space, Peter corrected. I have to go somewhere and give myself enough time to actually make the weapon we need to take this guy down. Making a weapon? Can I help? Iron Man grinned. Not this time, Peter said as he walked over to Mary Jane. I should be back in a second, a year for me, but a second for you. Where are you going? MJ questioned. When is he going? Drax spoke up. In another universe and in a far, far away galaxy, Peter closed his eyes and connected to the Great Web to find a universe where Galactus had died. Thanks to a certain guy named Abraxas. There were plenty to choose from. Have to go pick something up at my lab, so I might be gone for around an hour or so, Peter said as he teleported away. Once inside, he walked over the gene serum he had been working on for some time. Darwin's adaptability, Strong Guy's kinetic absorption and conversion of that kinetic energy into physical strength, the Griffin's growth factor, and then Elixir's power to bind them all together. I used Darwin to allow my body to rapidly adapt to the influx of kinetic energy I can absorb, evolving my body the more I store rather than damaging it. Add the Griffin's rapid growth when facing stronger opponents, and I'm basically Ultra Ego Vegeta. He looked at the serum in his hands and said, out of the countless trial and errors I had with this thing, only this one was successful. I wanted to add Gambit's kinetic generation ability into the mix, but the cocktail always became volatile once I added it. Though it's not like I can't just add Gambit's mutant gene by itself, however, I rather see if I can improve it first. Peter placed it over his heart and sighed. Normally I'd use a clone to test it, but I don't have time for that. Time for a Hail Mary. Webster, you ready? At your command, sir. Peter injected himself with the serum and felt his body suddenly surging with strength unlike anything he's ever felt before. The brand new custom-designed X gene merged with his blank gene, conforming into a single power rather than three separate ones. After the initial burst of internal energy, everything returned to normal. Peter punched his own fist to check whether or not the new power worked when he felt the kinetic energy travel into his muscles. Okay, now all I need to do is fight someone like Superman and evolve to grow as strong as him. I wonder if I can go to the DC universe or something and pick a fight with the Blue Boy Wonder. Author note, please read. 1. Maybe I could challenge Blue Marvel or Hyperion for a spar. They're basically Marvel's versions of Superman. As much as he'd love to test out his theory, he had a graveyard to visit. Peter opened a portal through the multiverse and went to one where Abraxas had killed just one Galactus, but a whole army of them. He floated in a pitch-black vacuum surrounded by a massive pile of bodies that was bigger than several planets combined. Peter made sure to make oxygen bubble around him with his reality topaz, and made his way to the corpses of the cosmic being. Well then, with a time difference of 1 year, I'll have to work fast. Peter waved his hand, creating a massive copy of Nidavellir Forge, and grabbed one of the bodies of Galactus before landing at the entrance. Now, to deal with these bodies, I'll start by dismantling him and learning everything about him. Peter spent days trying to make heads or tails of one of the most powerful beings in Marvel. He worked tirelessly taking him apart piece by piece and inspecting every corner of his massive body. This isn't working. The materials of his corpse are certainly quite powerful, but I can't understand how his body works. Ah, I got it. What better person to teach me than Galactus himself? Peter activated his Soul Emerald and Reality Topaz before creating a tiny body that resembled Galactus. Within it contained the combined knowledge of every Galactus corpse in this unique universe. The chibi Galactus suddenly opened his eyes and looked around with a confused expression. What madness is this? The cosmic being looked over his sea of corpses. It's your graveyard, Peter smirked as he got his attention. So, how do you like your new body? No starving sensations, correct? Galactus looked at his hands in surprise and then suddenly started laughing. It's gone. Gone. I left your intelligence intact and combined the soul fragments from this place to make your consciousness. Galactus looked at Peter and quickly figured him out. Is it the Infinity Stones? Infinity Gemstones, But you're close enough, Peter smirked. I see, Merlin. So it's not that you revived me, but you have created an entirely new being. What did you create me for, Spider-Man? I need to make a weapon to kill a new type of celestial, and your bodies will be the resource I use to craft it. The only issue is I don't know how to make sense of what the tech in your body does and what to use for materials. So, you need me to teach you? Galactus came to an understanding. It's why I left your mind intact. The knowledge you have will aid me in making the perfect weapon. If your aim is to kill a celestial, then you've chosen wisely, Spider-Man. However, you need something that will be the base of your weapon. Peter pulled out the Corvus glaive and created a soulless clone of anti-venom as he said, I intend to use this. The glaive of Corvus, and a symbiote that is disconnected from Null. Not a bad base material. Very well, Spider-Man. In turn for creating this new body for me, I shall aid you in understanding. Peter smiled and created a time dilation spell that covered the whole of the Nidavellir Forge. With all the time he needed, he spent almost a year just learning everything Galactus knew of his own body. Peter gained a decent understanding of various bits of knowledge Galactus had amassed throughout several universes. Being one of the longest living beings in many different existences, he was a wellspring of knowledge that never seemed to dry up. Once Peter had sufficient understanding of what he needed, he began construction on the weapon. For approximately 5 months, he hammered and merged the various materials into the new weapon. Every strike of his hammer generated so much heat and energy that it began birthing stars and galaxies. While Galactus didn't have his full power in his new body, it was more than enough to transport them to various sections of the universe. Without rest, food, water, or entertainment, Peter poured his soul into the weapon. Many years had passed, and before he knew it, Peter struck the hammer one last time that caused a massive explosion. That explosion wasn't normal whatsoever. It devoured the remaining bodies of Galactus and converged into the forge. With his new powers to absorb kinetic energy, his body underwent a metamorphosis. His skin grew tougher, his bones became more durable, and his muscles had transformed into an entirely new substance that was both dense and extremely lightweight. Peter managed to pull himself from the ground as he saw that the weapon he had forged was completely white in color and radiated with an incredibly powerful cosmic force. Congratulations, Spiderman. You have completed your task of making a weapon on par with the Necrosword. Even the all-black sword would not be able to break this weapon. I can't call it the all-white blade since there is a streak of black in it. Vitaglaive, I'll name you the Vitaglaive, Peter said as he grabbed hold of it and felt his body boiling over with unlimited potential. He stored the weapon within his symbiote and smirked as he asked, How long have I been working on this thing? Roughly 2.5 years within the temporal flow altered. Outside, you have spent around 2/10 THS of a year, Chibi Galactus explained. Well, I guess I'll take my leave. I've been here long enough. Enjoy your new life, Galactus. I'll do just that, Galactus replied as he looked out over the universe with a smile on his face. Peter opened a portal back to his own universe and jumped in. Chapter 104, Issue 104, The Amazing Web Part 18. Now that he was home, Peter felt ready to take on the living planet. Of course, now that he carried a weapon powerful enough to slay Celestials, Peter's confidence was higher than it ever had been before. He noticed MJ and the others still standing at the same spot and smiled as he waved. You guys ready to kill a planet hell-bent on absorbing everything in the universe? That was fast, Tony smirked. For you, I spent almost 2 years making what I needed to take this thing down. You spent 2 years there? MJ frowned. Yeah, it was laborious, but I'm ready, Peter nodded his head before looking towards the Guardians of the Galaxy. Mantis, I'm going to put you back where you were before I left. We need to make sure that Ego doesn't catch on to our plan. Mantis nodded her head before she was teleported into the temporal lock. Peter then shut the machine down as he called out, Hey, Jason. We're ready to go to this place you're talking about. And my son? I'll go with, Quill spoke up. Then we're going with him. The Guardians and the Avengers stood by his side. What do we do with Yondu? Drax whispered. I'll figure something out, Peter replied. I am Groot. That is a good idea. Yondu can babysit, MJ said with a smile. All right. When do we leave? Do you have anything you need to grab? Bathroom breaks. Jason asked. I think we're good, MJ scratched the side of her head. Peter looked around. Anyone need to use the bathroom? I do, Scott replied before they all gave him a funny look. Bathroom, that way, Peter pointed to a nearby building. Thanks. Peter went ahead and made Yondu take care of Baby Groot while Scott took care of business. After he got back, they all boarded the Milano and took off into the stars. While they followed Jason, he went to bed with Mantis' help and he was none the wiser to what was going on in the ship behind him. Peter passed out a helmet that would turn invisible when needed. What's this for? Magneto asked. Put it on now and keep it on when we arrive at the planet. The plan is simple. While you guys stall for time, MJ, Wasp, Scott, and I will head into the core of the planet. There is a nucleus that we need to destroy in order to kill Ego. Peter created an image of the planet. Whoa, that's a big face. Tony looked at the image with interest. A living planet, how interesting. Charles rubbed his chin. Where is the target? Magneto asked. We have a plan, right? Scarlet Witch asked. The plan is, we shrink down and let Quicksilver take us to the center of the planet without Ego catching on to us. This guy is capable of reality-breaking feats, so I'd rather it not turn into a direct confrontation. Star-Lord, that's where you come in. What do I have to do? I need you to listen to him, play along and keep his attention on you. When we can leave, we'll head straight towards the target. However, he has a defense system, kind of like antibodies. Peter pointed to those he mentioned earlier. I need you all to help me clear a line to the nucleus. Can't we just portal in? MJ asked. No, he has several defenses up. This guy is pretty much a god, so the usual methods don't work. However, he'll be preoccupied with trying to get Quill on board with his plan. That's our best chance at ending this in one fell stroke. I assume you have something that can kill this god? Charles asked. I do, but I don't want to reveal it until I get close enough to use it. Peter nodded his head. Then these helmets are for? Quicksilver spun said helmet on his finger. It's so you don't breathe in the pollen of the planet. I'm not kidding when I say that everything on the planet is part of Ego's body. The plants, the air, and the land, all of it is under his control. You breathe it in, and he can basically jack your body from you. Pietro stopped spinning the headgear he was given, and held it with a bit more urgency. All right, we'll follow your lead, Peter. Tony backed him up. So, how long do you think this'll take? Wasp spoke with a curious expression. A couple of hours until we arrive, maybe a day before he tries to coax Quill into his plan. But this is just a guess. I can't see the future, only the past. What good is that? Quill asked. It allows me to tell you what kind of person Ego is. He's overconfident, prideful, and won't see us as a threat. However, that'll give us the chance to kill in him. He sees as ants, so let's behave like them. Peter looked at Scott. Ooh, I get it. Yeah, I think we can do it. If we have Quicksilver carry us, we can probably sneak past all his guards, Ant-Man replied. We can definitely pull it off, but we don't have any spare suits, Wasp replied. I'll take care of that too, Peter said as he gave Quicksilver a copy of Webster. Holy crap. I'm practically bursting with energy. Pietro called out as he rushed around the room a few times. Peter shook his head and said, helmets on. They all did so and waited. During that time, Tony was busy scanning everything he could get his eyes on. Pietro was chatting with Scott and Janet. MJ and Peter watched the stars pass by outside the window. Rocket looked for stuff to snag. Groot did his best to stop him. Gamora stayed by Quill and tried to keep him calm. Charles and Eric played chess. Wanda practiced her magic while occasionally answering Steve's questions about said magic, and Drax ate a bag of chips. When they finally arrived, they saw the massive planet and entered the atmosphere. They all gasped at its beauty. As psychotic as Ego was, he had an eye for design. They landed next to the Ego's ship before a platform suddenly detached from it. Come on. I'll give you the tour, Ego declared as he smiled. The group looked to Peter. He nodded and jumped up onto the platform before the rest joined him. So, are you the leader of Earth or something? Why would you ask that? Peter looked to Quill. I see how the others look at, even my kid. They respect you. I'd even go so far as to say that they revere you, Ego replied. No, I'm just a high-ranking member of our planet's greatest heroes, Peter replied while hiding his disgust for the being in front of him. I see. Don't remember many of them when I was back on Earth in '79. Mutants, huh? Quite strange if you ask me. No stranger then. What are you exactly? Your genetic sequence is that of a species called Spartaxians, but it's also something completely different at the same time. I'm what's known as a Celestial, Ego bragged. I just liked the Spartacian body and chose it as my image. Right. Quill said with a bit of spite in his voice. Aren't Celestials supposed to be like giants or something? I mean, we've been nowhere, and you look nothing like that. Gamora hid in the rib and said, what he's trying to say is that you're not what we're expecting. Oh, that's because I'm a different breed altogether. I'm a newer generation Celestial, not an ancient one. I mean, come on, you don't see me finding it weird that you don't look like apes. Except for that triangle-faced monkey, I still haven't figured out what he is. A raccoon is closer to being a bear, wolf, or cat. They're part of the Procyanid genus, Peter lifted a brow. Not very smart for a Celestial, Quill chuckled before Gamora stopped on his foot. Will you cut that out? Quill shouted in hushed tones. You first, Gamora huffed. Is something wrong? Ego asked. A lover's spat, MJ smirked and did her best to cover up for Quill. Oh, so you're my son's mate? You have good taste, Peter. Thanks, Peter and Peter said at the same time. Seriously? Quill lifted a brow. Sorry, couldn't help it, Peter laughed. You didn't deny it that time, Drax smirked at Gamora. Shut up. Huh. I'm glad Mary Jane managed to put photo function on my suit. The look on your face was priceless. Rocket teased. I am Groot. I know, right? She blushed. She did. Quill looked over. Anyways, nice planet you got here, Tony spoke up. Ah, it's not that impressive. It's only about the size of the Earth's moon. Does he ever stop bragging? Wanda sent a telepathic message to her brother. His name is Ego, sis, Quicksilver thought back as he leaned against the railing. I'd love to catalog all the flora on the planet, Charles spoke up. I wonder if any of it can be used for medicine. Oh, there are plenty of interesting species on my little rock I call home, Ego added as the platform started moving. Any rare or? Rocket asked. I have that too, Ego replied with a smirk. This place is quite beautiful, MJ said as she peered out into the vast terrain of greenery. Shame about the owner though, Peter thought before he said. Yeah, it really is something. They stopped at the tour at a massive-looking castle-like structure. There were fountains with strange fish swimming through the water currents, multiple sections or the buildings that overlooked the landscape, materials that were completely unknown to most of the universe, and various pieces of technology that they had never seen before. He led them inside and a massive hall with beautiful and alien architecture. They all showed signs of wonder and amazement as he held his hands out and said, Welcome to my house. Ego turned to his son not son and showed the capsule containing images of his early years. One was of a brain that started to light up. You see, I don't know where it was that I came from. My first memory was me flickering, adrift through the cosmos, utterly and entirely alone. Over millions of years, I learned to control the molecules around me. The image showed a planet forming around the brain. I grew smarter and stronger. Then, I continued building from there. Layer by layer, the very planet you walk on now. Whoa, Quicksilver spoke up as he watched the image forming the planet. But I wanted more. I desired meaning. Ego started walking away. I always thought there had to be something out there, some kind of intelligent life in the universe besides just me. He led them to another viewing pod. And so, I set myself to the task of finding it. However, little did I know, it would find me first. The image showed a ship making an emergency landing on the planet's surface. A member of the Spartacian race landed here, and I studied his biology. When he left, I recreated the body to suit my current image. The 3D image showed a body being built from energy alone. Did you make a penis? Drax asked. Dude. Quill turned around with an annoyed expression. What is wrong with you? Gamora added. Peter just laughed. He knew that Drax was gullible and probably figured that he thought that Ego was telling the truth or didn't completely pay attention when he explained the living planet's history. If he's a planet, how could he make a baby with your mother? He would smush her. Tony started laughing as well while he leaned into his Peter to stop himself from falling over. Yes, Drax. I have a penis, Ego answered. Huh. Thank you. And it's not half bad. I also made pain receptor, organs, digestive tract, and all the junk that comes with it. I wanted to experience what it truly meant to be mortal as I set out amongst the stars. Ego walked in front of another projection device. After many years of searching the vastness of space, I had found what I was searching for, intelligent life. There was so much of it that it was almost blinding. It showed the image of a bubblegum pink-skinned girl holding a stuffed animal. I was no longer alone. When did you meet Quill's mother? I would love to hear how you conceived him. I sure one as old as you has much wisdom to share on the matter, Drax asked with a curious expression. Dude! Gamora, Rocket, and a few others in the group shouted in unison. Okay, big guy, we're going to have to talk about public and private information, Rocket groaned. You humans are so weird, Drax shrugged his shoulders. Meredith. Ah, sweet Meredith. It was with your mother that I first experienced love. I called her my river lily. The new image appeared of Jason holding and kissing her before it started removing her clothing. Quill's eyes widened in horror while Drax looked on in interest. Quill used his boosters to fly in front of the image. Not funny, look away, damn it. And would you quit? Drax, stop. You don't need to see this. None of you need to this. I don't need to see this. Ego chuckled a few times and skipped the image forward to showing a pregnant Meredith. From that union, you were born. I have searched for you for so long. And when I heard of the hero Star-Lord going by the name of Peter Quill, I knew I had found you, Ego sighed. Follow me, I want to show you something. The living planet passing the body of Jason started to lead him away when he turned to the group and said, I just need a minute with him. Quill gave a worried look as he looked to Peter. In turn, Spiderman sent a telepathic message. Don't worry. Just treat him as your actual father. Ego is probably using his memories and speaking through him anyways. Just try and talk to him as if he were in control. Peter sat back at the top of the massive compound with MJ, while Quill let Ego show him how to use the powers contained within his celestial blood. It took all of Star-Lord's willpower to play along, but eventually, he got into the hang of things, actually treating Ego as if he were his father. Tony was off with Magneto exploring the planet and its strange technology. Charles stewed the plants and environment with Janet, and Scott chilled with Mantis, Gamora, and Drax. They all bid their time until the moment Peter was waiting for came. They spent most of the night just wasting time and learning what they could from the planet when it finally happened. Ego attempted to connect with Quill in order to activate the countless spores he has scattered across the universe. However, the moment he tried to create a mental pathway between the father and son, he fell for Peter's trap card. The helmet he gave Quill trapped him in an illusion that made him think the plan was working. While he laughed like a lunatic, and completely believed that he had won the day, the Avengers were enacting their plan. How long is he going to be like this? Quill asked. Don't know, prepare for the worst, Peter said as he looked to Quicksilver. Pietro, you're up. Got it. The speedster replied as he and the others shrunk down. They made sure that Ant-Man, Wasp, MJ, and Peter shrank down to a quarter of the size Quicksilver was at and jumped in his hands. He took off in a flash of speed that couldn't be seen while Wanda started drawing a magic circle around Jason. What are you doing? Quill asked. He said prepare for the worst. Figure I'd make a powerful explosive if he wakes up. That's my dad's body. Okay then, maybe a containment spell instead? Thank you, Quill said. I thought the explosive was a good idea, Drax spoke up. Dude, Rocket gave him a WTF expression. Drax tilted his head with a confused expression. I thought you liked explosives? What if that was your dad? Tony asked. Impossible. My father wouldn't be dumb enough to be caught in a trap like this. I am Groot. How am I insensitive? I have very sensitive skin. Is he always like this? Eric asked. Always, Rocket groaned as he slapped his forehead. The secondary team was rushing through the tunnels that led deep into the surface of the planet. They stopped in front of Ceres' winding caves that confused Quicksilver. The hell is this place? It's the neural network of a celestial. It's just been hollowed out after years of decay. It's practically a maze. Peter responded. I see why you needed me. All right, let's see how good my luck is. The speedster dashed off and started running through thousands upon thousands of tunnels. While the Quicksilver passed through the pathways, they came across dozens of antibody creatures. Luckily for them, they were too fast and too small to be noticed. However, all of that was about to change. Chapter 105, Issue 105, The Amazing Web Part 19. A few hours earlier, Nebula, who had finished gathering information on Nowhere. Armed with the information that she pried out of a broker, she left the giant head of the deceased Celestial and followed the tracking device back to the Milano's position. What are they doing all the way out there? Nebula thought as she started up the warp drive. The moment she saw Ego, the living planet sensed her arrival, snapping the Celestial out of the illusion. What the? Which lady? Quill called out with a worried expression. Scarlet, which immediately activated her spell. Glowing red chains shot out from the circle at the base of Ego's feet and wrapped his body up several times. What in heaven's name is this? Ego realized he couldn't escape the bindings of the heroine's imprisonment magic. How did you do that? Ego looked at Quill with a curious expression. Does it matter? Quill showed a confident smile. Now why don't you do me a favor and get the hell out of my dad's head? Ha ha ha. So, you knew the whole time. Well, no matter, whatever this is. Ego tried to break free from the chains but couldn't. Well, I guess it might be able to hold this mortal body, but I don't particularly need it to protect myself. Dozens of antibodies suddenly started manifesting within the room they were in. Now where are your other friends? The Avengers immediately went on the defense as they were bombarded by strange superpowered bipedal creatures. Tony fired countless energy beams and used his most mastered heat enhancement spells to empower them. Wanda's chaotic spells tore them asunder, while Magneto used his ferrokinesis to rip the monsters apart atom by atom. Charles used his telekinesis to create a spherical barrier around the daughter and father duo, while the Guardians attacked with everything they had. Quill's element gun was on full blast as he channeled the powers of a celestial through them. Ice, fire, and lightning tore through the antibodies and cleared a lot of the room. Gamora and her adamantium edge combined with her incredible strength and speed allowed her to tear through dozens of the drone-like humanoids. Drax's blades and great strength fought alongside Mantis, who made her opponents go crazy by manipulating their emotions. Rocket and Groot shot, tearing through everything that came close to them, while Captain used his martial arts and shield to its fullest potential to destroy his opponents. Guys, give up. There's no point in killing them. I'll just make more. Ego laughed like he wasn't in any trouble at all. What the hell happening on this planet? Nebula read off the strange readings her ship was picking up. Now, this blue lady wouldn't happen to be a friend of yours, would she? Ego smirked. Nebula? Gamora quickly jumped into the shield Charles made and called her. Sister? Is that you? What's? Let me out and I'll spare your friend's life, Ego commanded as a giant organic-looking gun appeared at the entrance. Get off the planet, hurry. Gamora shouted as she pulled the gun from her hip and started firing into the crowd of enemies. I'm trying. The ship isn't responding. No, the gravity keeps increasing. Oh, she's not going anywhere. I don't know how you all resisted my spores, but I'm guessing whatever it is that's allowing you to do so won't apply to the newcomer. You let her go. Gamora shouted as she placed her sword at Ego's throat. Or what? You'll kill Quill's father. Wait, easy Gamora, Star-Lord shouted as he shot the antibody that was just behind her. I found you little insects. You aren't supposed to be there. Ego's attention was turned to Quicksilver, who was still searching for the nucleus. The group charged with assassinating Ego realized their cover was blown the moment that the antibodies started shooting lasers at them. Pietro was quick enough to avoid them, but there were so many that it was starting to become an issue. Running out of room to move. Quicksilver shouted. Then go faster. MJ shouted. I can't, it'll tear you guys to bits. Pietro informed as he started running through the enemies at Mach speed. Peter created a barrier for the other while he stood outside of it. Just go. We'll be fine. Hi-ho Quicksilver, away. You asked for this. Quicksilver suddenly started moving even faster. It got to the point where the world looked like it was frozen in time. Peter felt the massive load of kinetic force slam into his body. However, not only was he able to resist it, but it continued to empower his body the longer he withstood the massive strain of moving at near light speed. How are they doing this? Ego thought in horror as the speedster ran through the entire length of the tunnels. Hey! I saw something glowing. Pietro shouted out. It's also the most heavily guarded area. All right, we've found the target. Everyone, clear the way. Peter shouted as they jumped from Quicksilver's hands and plowed through the targets. Scott turned into a giant and started destroying the area, and kicked dozens of the antibody drones away. Wasp threw micro-explosive into their bodies. MJ used the surrounding earth to swallow them up into the ground, and with his hands finally free, Quicksilver tore through enemies at full speed. Peter made a mad dash straight through the opening his teammates made while Ego started to sweat. Quill, make them stop or I'll kill your little friend. Gamora, don't you dare listen to him, Nebula shouted as she got ready to abandon ship. The metal exterior of the spaceship started to crunch in on itself. Due to the enhancements that she'd gotten from the super soldier serum, the blue-skinned blonde was sure that she could survive long enough for Gamora to finish whatever they had planned. But Gamora's voice contained fear for her sister. Nebula turned to face the window before she dashed forward and leapt through it. The glass shattered around her, tearing into her skin a bit, but she rapidly fell towards the planet and landed on Ego's surface. An armada of biological drones started attacking. However, Nebula was more than a match as she fought tooth and nail to survive, tearing through her opponents with her bare hands and several guns she kept on her back. Peter, you have to tell them to stop. If they kill me, then this world will break. It'll collapse in on itself. All of you will die. Pete. Quill called out. Spider-Man retrieved his weapon and let the Vita Glaive be seen by Ego. Peter, Quill. If you do this, that power I showed, what makes you special, all of that will disappear. Power is never what made me special, Quill replied as he took a deep breath. Do it, Spider-Man. Peter smirked as he dashed towards the core and struck out with all of his strength. No. Ego cried out as the tip of the blade cut cleanly through the protective barrier and stabbed his nucleus. Jason's body went limp while all the biological drones turned into goop. They all started to scatter and make their way towards the door, fully expecting the planet to start crumbling down like Ego claimed. However, it never came. Did you think I didn't have a plan for that? Peter's voice came over the comms. The very moment Ego died, the symbiotic glaive suddenly started glowing alongside Peter's gemstones. I'm not just going to kill Ego, I'm going to completely rebuild him. For starters, let's make him a new body, sever the connection between him and Jason, and make his new purpose to seed planets and terraform them. The Vita Glaive shined brightly as it transformed the core into a body that looked like Vision. Peter couldn't help but think of the guy that didn't exist in his world due to his actions. However, this would be his way of making that up. Peter started with the frame, blood, muscles, bone and organs, all made from materials like adamantium, orichalcum, vibranium, URU, and adamantine. His facial features came next. He shaped them into a mix of Paul Bettany and the comic version before saying, "Your new name is Vision." The living planet quaked as the being's body was finished. Just for good measure, let's make him completely subservient to Star-Lord and wipe his persona out so he can start over properly, Peter huffed as he started the process. Gotta make sure not to destroy his data, just his ego. Peter pulled out a spare prime materia before imbuing it with the same powers his Mind Sapphire had before installing it on his forehead. It didn't contain the same powers as the Mind Infinity Stone, but it did make a good substitute. When he was done with the process of making Vision, he created a new power source for the planet by pulling out every last bit of celestial material he gathered from nowhere. A single crystallized orb floated in its place as he turned to MJ and said, "You're up." Right. MJ placed her hand on the orangish red object. The powers of Forge allowed her to create the most advanced AI system that ever and probably will ever exist in their universe. The celestial blood awakened, unveiling the powers of eternity and creation while the new Vision opened his eyes. Peter saw countless zeros and ones running across his eyes before he used the dwarven forging method and his soul emerald to forge the new being's persona and soul. Kind, righteous, dedicated, honorable, responsible, and everything that Peter considered heroic all went into the core with MJ programming. A flash of light emanated from core that spread out all over the planet. When everything was said and done, Vision took a deep breath and looked at his hands. I see. My purpose is to spread life amongst the cosmos and protect the innocent. Whoa, what did you do? Quicksilver asked. Hello, my name is Vision, and according to my information, I am also an Avenger. We made him better, Peter started. Faster, MJ followed up. Stronger, Scott added as he shrank back down to normal size. I love the $1 Million Man, Quicksilver chuckled. I was more of a documentary lover, Janet added. You should watch it, it's old, but it's also so old you find it funny as you watch it. Some of the sound effects they used still make me laugh, MJ smirked. We can watch it together, Scott smiled as he pulled back his helmet. Sure, sounds like fun, Janet replied. Guys? What's going on? Quill's voice came out over the comms. I'll explain in a bit. Peter turned to Quicksilver and took back his symbiote, letting it refuse with Webster before he opened a portal. Oh hey. Quill waved at the other side of the portal. They all hopped through and saw Jason in magic chains. Huh, interesting magic. Vision looked at the Scarlet Witch's designs. Who's that? The Reborn Ego. Everybody, meet the new and improved living planet, Vision. Hello, Vision snapped his fingers, dismantling Wanda's spell before he healed the weary Jason. I must apologize about my past transgression, but I ask that you understand, Ego is dead, I am what took his place. I taught him that, Peter chuckled. We gave him pretty much everything we had on programming and magic, MJ followed up. So, is everything good? Quill looked at his father. Ah yes. He is only sleeping. He should recover after a dozen hours or slow. My previous incarnation was basically taxing his mind to the point of near total collapse. Now that he can finally sleep, I imagine he will back to normal when he wakes up. Vision passed over the unconscious father to his son, and looked to Peter before nodding his head. I have to make sure, Nebula is okay. Gamora started making her way towards the entrance. I'm fine, sister. Nebula's voice rang out as she stepped inside. Her outfit was a little scuffed, but she hadn't really taken any damage. Seeing the strange gathering of people, the blue-skinned alien looked around and said, Does someone want to clue me in on what I've missed?